Chapter 90. Ji-dong's gaze was completely focused on the flaming bar as he held the flask steadily with one hand. He didn't look at the flask as he began to shake the flask with his right hand naturally. At this moment, he was different from how he was in the past. In the past, there was nothing else in his heart but the wine. At this moment, whether it was in his eyes or in his heart, there was only a raging flame. He shook the flask with his right hand, completely relying on his instincts. However, it was also at this moment that the emotions in his heart reached an unprecedented level. In the transparent crystal flask, the liquor gradually blended into a bright red color. The magnificent color accompanied the flask as it danced in the air with dazzling curves. When Fury saw that Ji-dong was mixing drinks, he couldn't help but look over. When he realized that Ji-dong was only using one hand, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. However, his gaze quickly froze, and he couldn't help but blurt out, "Is this even possible?" The red liquor gradually formed in the air. Although he only used one hand, Ji-dong's movements became faster and faster. The crowd could only see the sparkling red color of the flask, but they couldn't see Ji-dong's arm anymore. Suddenly, Ji-dong's eyes lit up, and his hand movements suddenly doubled. The sparkling red color actually formed in the air. It was no longer in the shape of a sun. This time, the sparkling red color actually formed a red heart in the air. Under the illumination of a lapis lazuli palace lantern, the red heart repeatedly contracted and expanded above Ji-dong's head as though it was beating. Thump, 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 thump. The sound of a heartbeat could be heard. Every time the red heart flashed, contracted, and expanded, the powerful heartbeat could be heard in the ballroom. The people dancing on the dance floor could not help but look at Ji-dong's head. Lan Bauer covered her mouth with her hands. There was only one thought in her mind. How good would it be if the red heart was beating for her? She thought to herself, it would be great. However, only Lan Bauer and Ji-dong could see that the heartbeat was produced by Ji-dong tapping the wooden board at the bottom of the bar with the tip of his foot. However, it was so harmonious when paired with the sparkling and beating red heart. Just as Ji-dong had said, this was a type of drink that he had never mixed before. Even a mixing technique was something he had thought up on the spot. It was far less difficult than the shooting 9 suns and the descent of the 9 fairies that he had used before, but its significance was far greater than the technique. The eyes of the flaming bar had already turned into crescent moons, and her face was filled with a gentle smile. Her hand also subconsciously tightened its grip on Ji-dong's hand. At this moment, suddenly, a beam of yellow light quietly passed through, piercing the red heart above Ji-dong's head. With a crisp crack, the beating red heart shattered, and the red wine poured down, along with the ice shards that Lan Bauer had condensed, splattering all over Ji-dong's head and face. Everyone was stunned, and they all turned to look in the direction of the yellow light. They could see Ji Yifeng's raised hands slowly falling. Ji Yifeng's originally handsome face was slightly distorted, and his eyes were filled with jealousy, resentment, and many other emotions. When Xian left, he was completely dazed, attracted by Ji-dong's mixing skills. Looking at the flaming bar, who was many times more beautiful than Xian, looking at Ji-dong with a smile, and thinking about the past between him and Xian, the fire of jealousy in his heart rose to an extreme level, and he finally couldn't help but destroy the perfection in front of him. That beam of yellow light was shot out by him. "Bastard!" Fury shouted angrily, and rushed towards Ji Yifeng in one big stride. At this moment, all the disciples of Enyang Hall were filled with righteous indignation, even those who were on good terms with Ji Yifeng. In their eyes, Ji-dong's mixing skills were as perfect as the flaming bars. Seeing this perfection being destroyed by external forces, how could they not be indignant? Moreover, Ji-dong mixing drinks with the flaming bar had nothing to do with Ji Yifeng. A huge mud wall appeared out of nowhere, and suddenly separated Ji Yifeng and Fury. Ji Yifeng's cold voice sounded, "Fury, don't forget, the Academy doesn't prohibit challenges, but private fights are prohibited. If you dare to touch me, not only will you be in serious trouble, Even your own director will have to face the consequences. I only broke a flask. Boom! The mud wall that looked as thick as a meter suddenly shattered like a piece of paper in front of Fury. He said, I don't care about the Academy's rules. Ji Feng, I've been unhappy with you for a long time. Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because you're the grandson of the Emperor of the Middle Upper Empire. At most, I'll kill you and leave the Heavenly STEM Academy. In the air, the terrifying lightning energy condensed, and all the glass lanterns in the banquet hall began to flicker. Even though they weren't powered by electricity, they were still affected by the berserk lightning energy, and everyone present felt their bodies go numb. Senior brother, stop. At this moment, a deep and cold voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell suddenly rang out. Fury had already released his lightning attribute Sun Crown, but he also stopped his actions when he heard this voice. Both he and Ji Feng looked towards the direction of the voice at the same time. The bright red liquid made Ji Dong look extremely disheveled. At this moment, he had already let go of the flaming bar because he didn't want the liquid on his body to flow down and stain the flaming bar. If one were to say that his gaze was as hot as fire just a moment ago, then right now, his gaze was as cold as an ancient profound ice, filled with endless coldness. Ji Dong. The flaming bar called out to him softly. Ji Dong turned around and forced a smile at the flaming bar. Then, he turned around resolutely and strode over to Hioheim Feng. The flaming bar was in a slight daze. She hadn't expected everything that had happened tonight. She hadn't expected that her arrival would make Ji Dong so excited. She hadn't expected that the dance under the starry sky would make her heart beat faster in excitement. She also hadn't expected that Ji Dong would use such a method to make fine wine. When Ji Dong turned around resolutely and walked over to Hioheim Feng, the flaming bar realized that she couldn't seem to control him anymore. Ever since the incident with the vermilion bird, Ji Dong didn't seem to be as obedient as a disciple. However, the more he was like this, the easier it was for her to be infected by Ji Dong's domineering masculinity. Little junior brother, don't worry. I won't let this guy off. Lightning shot out of the Thunder Emperor's eyes. Ji Feng had already sobered up when he saw his terrifying gaze. He couldn't help but feel remorseful. He hadn't expected that his little junior brother would be so important to the Thunder Emperor. However, since he had already done it, there was no use in regretting it. Senior brother, let me handle this myself. Ji Dong walked over to Fury and nodded at him. Fury was stunned for a moment, and the anger in his eyes gradually faded. This was because he realized that there was a cold glint in Ji Dong's eyes. Even he shuddered a little. He thought to himself, little junior brother, what exactly do you want to do? Ji Dong turned around and looked at Hioheim Feng. At this moment, Ji Toa had already released his Yang Crown, 5 crowns, and 4 half-corona stars due to the immense pressure he was under from the Thunder Emperor. He displayed his valiant strength as a level 59 Fifth Earth Martial Grandmaster. Although he was still far from Fury's level 69 strength, he was the strongest among the students in the entire Yin-Yang Hall apart from Fury. Wiping away the wine on his face, Ji Dong said coldly, give me a reason. Ji Toa laughed coldly and said, do I need a reason? Is this considered a reason that I don't like you? Who do you think you are? What level are you? 2 crowns or 3 crowns? How dare you imitate the Thunder Emperor? Why do all the good girls in the world have to be brothers with you? Xin still refuses to be intimate with me. Isn't it because she has fury in her heart? Who do you think you are? You've just joined the Yin-Yang Hall, and you've already gained the favor of such a beautiful girl. Why? Tell me, what right do you have? Ji Dong didn't get angry. Instead, Hioheim Feng nodded and said, I'll tell you what right do I have. As he spoke, he swung his right hand, and with a clang, the token with the number 49 on it fell on the black marble floor. Then he said resolutely, number 49, Ji Dong of the fire element, challenges you. Little junior brother, you can't. Fury panicked. He didn't expect Ji Dong to be so unyielding. Ji Feng was also a little stunned and said, you want to challenge me? Number 49 is challenging number 2? Fury grabbed Ji Dong and said, little junior brother, quickly take back your token. This isn't a joke. He can't find a reason to deal with you. Ji Dong turned to look at Fury and said calmly, Senior brother, it's true that I'm not strong enough, but someone insulted my lover right in front of me. If I don't respond, then wouldn't I be the same as him? Tortoise hiding in its shell? Don't stop me. Otherwise, we won't be brothers anymore. You're calling me a tortoise? Ji Yifeng's sore spot was trampled on. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. In fact, everyone present had a scale in their hearts. At the beginning of the ball, Ji Yifeng retreated in the face of the pressure brought by Fury and let Exine go. At this moment, Ji Dong was only in his teens, but he brazenly issued a challenge to Special 2 as Special 49. A simple comparison was enough to make many things clear. Good. Ji Yifeng bent down and picked up the token that Ji Dong had thrown. He said, I accept your challenge. According to the Enyang Hall's rules, if there's a difference of more than 10 places in the rankings, the challenge method, time, and place will be decided by the one with the lower ranking. Ji Dong said coldly, the place is here, and the time is now. The way of the battle is to attack each other, one person at a time. When you're attacked, you can't dodge. You can only defend. You'll take turns until one of you falls. Ji Dong fully demonstrated to the students of the Enyang Hall what was simple and brutal. The challenge method he proposed was undoubtedly the simplest, and it was about to begin. Everyone couldn't help but sweat for him. After all, there was a difference of 47 places between the two in the Enyang Hall. Although they didn't know how strong Ji Dong was, there was a huge gap between him and Ji Yifeng. Moreover, the challenge method he chose was undoubtedly advantageous to Ji Yifeng. The earth element was best at defense and counterattack. Earth countered water and fire, so it suppressed Ji Dong to the point that he didn't stand a chance. Ji Yifeng also took out a token and handed it to Fury along with Ji Dong's token. He said, Fury, you're the first seat of the Enyang Hall. There's no teacher here, so please come and witness this challenge for us. In the Enyang Hall, even the school board couldn't stop a lower-ranking disciple from challenging a higher-ranking disciple. This was a rule that had lasted for hundreds of years, so it was useless for Fury to be anxious. After receiving the token from Ji Yifeng, Fury said in a low voice, If you don't want to die, then don't hurt my little junior brother. Otherwise, the powerful pressure from the Thunder Monarch caused Ji Yifeng's hysterical emotions to calm down completely. To him, Ji Dong's challenge was an unfair victory. If he really hurt Ji Dong, the Thunder Monarch would probably not let him off. Ji Dong, come here. The flaming bar's voice rang out, and Ji Dong turned to look at her. He hesitated for a moment, but still walked over. Arriving before the flaming bar, Ji Dong's eyes flickered with determination, and he said, Flaming bar, don't try to stop me. I know what I'm doing. No one can insult you, not even a god. The flaming bar smiled. Did I say that I'm going to stop you? If I really didn't want you to continue this battle, I wouldn't have used words to stop you. Listen to me. As she spoke, she bent down and whispered something into Ji Dong's ear. Hearing her words, Ji Dong was stunned for a moment. Then, he nodded slowly, and there was something else in the coldness in his eyes. Very soon, the flaming bar finished speaking. Without waiting for Ji Dong to react, she said softly, Do you know, Ji Dong? You're the first man to fight for me. I'll wait for you to come back and tell me the name of the wine you made earlier. The coldness in Ji Dong's eyes turned into passion again. But what was different from before was that this time, the passion in his eyes was even more wild. He turned around and walked towards Hyoheim with his head held high. At this moment, he was still a little hesitant. But since he had already agreed to the challenge, he had to continue. He couldn't afford to offend Fury. In the holy evil battlefield, his life was at stake. Hyoheim made a gesture of invitation and said, You can start first. Ji Dong's eyes lit up. He slowly raised his hand from his sides. What did the flaming bars say to Ji Dong? This battle was a 3-time champion challenging a 5-time champion. What happened? Would Ji Dong be able to wash away the humiliation and prove to the flaming bar that he had the power to protect her? Chapter 91. What you've done is unforgivable. Ji Dong's voice was so cold that it seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. His gaze was like that of a venomous snake, causing Ji Yifeng's heart to tremble. Chi, chi. Two soft sounds rang out at the same time. Red and blue flames rose from Ji Dong's palms, which were covered in the dual brilliance of sun and moon gloves. As a bartender, Ji Dong hated it when others interrupted his mixing process. Moreover, his bottle of wine was made for the love of his heart. Ji Yifeng's expression also became calm. A faint yellow light gathered around his body. He wasn't surprised by Ji Dong's dual-colored flames. Obviously, he already knew that Ji Dong had such an ability. However, he didn't use any magic skills to protect himself. Although the tricolored yin-yang crown on Ji Dong's head surprised him a little, the difference between level 31 and level 59, as well as the fact that earth element restrained fire element, made him not worried at all. Special number 2 versus special number 49. How could he lose? The other students of Yin-Yang Hall naturally didn't think that Ji Dong would win. In their eyes, Ji Dong was full of sorrow. However, even if they wanted to help him, they couldn't. The rules of the school couldn't be violated. The Thunder Emperor Fury had already clenched his fists tightly. He had already thought it through. If Ji Yifeng really wanted to harm Ji Dong, he would stop him even if he would be punished by the academy. This challenge was completely unfair. Little junior brother, why are you even more impulsive than me? Although, I really admire your impulsiveness. The red third fire and the blue fourth fire burned fiercely in his palms. The tricolored yin-yang crown shone brightly. The rules of the challenge were proposed by Ji Dong. The difference in status between the two of them in Yin-Yang Hall was huge. Ji Yifeng naturally couldn't ask for the first attack. That was why he pretended to be generous and let excitement have the right to attack first. Ji Dong stood only 5 meters away from Ji Yifeng. When the dual-colored flames rose, his eyes suddenly lit up like the stars in the sky. A deep and calm voice came from Ji Dong's mouth. Chaos creates the world. The flaming bar lights up the world. Awaken, vermilion bird's magic sleeping in my body. At this very moment, he was holding a fire rank 4 crystal core in each of his hands. The fire crystal core in his left hand was the fire crystal core in his right hand, and the fire crystal core in his right hand was the same attribute as the 2 crystal crowns on the twin radiant sun and moon gloves. Only in this way could he absorb the mana within the crystal core to the greatest extent and the fastest speed. This incantation was the most important sentence that the flaming bar had said to him. Hearing it, Ji Yifeng's gaze became a little blank. Fury, who was behind Ji Dong, relaxed a little, as if he had thought of something. The moment the last word of the incantation was finished, the dual-colored flames in Ji Dong's palms suddenly changed. The original blue and red flames turned into scorching red third fire. A layer of surging white light spread out from his body, and a loud and clear phoenix cry resounded through the world. White as snow condensed behind Ji Dong's back, turning into a pair of wings spread open. It was a huge white phoenix. The only difference from the original color was the pair of golden phoenix eyes. Staring at Ji Dong, it lightly spread its wings and suddenly rushed towards his body. There was no magic fluctuation in the dense white energy, but the moment it collided with Ji Dong, the moment the two fused, Ji Dong's entire temperament changed dramatically. If the previous confrontation between Ji Dong and Ji Yifeng was like a small cluster of flames in front of the towering mountains, then at this moment, he was like a volcano in the middle of the mountains that could erupt at any time. Ji Yifeng's complexion changed for the first time. The unknown was the most terrifying. Although Ji Dong's magical power was only 3 crowns, but when the white phoenix light merged with his body, Ji Yifeng clearly felt the pressure. As the white phoenix light merged with his body, Ji Dong's entire body swelled a bit. His muscles became more defined, and in the dense white light, a thin layer of white armor appeared under his skin, instantly covering his entire body. Every piece of armor looked like a vermilion bird feather, pure white, without a trace of impurity, with a trace of chaotic temperament. In an instant, it covered every part of Ji Dong's body. Even his face was completely covered. Only this time, His clothes did not disappear. Only a slight tearing sound could be heard. A faint white light emerged from the vermilion bird armor, and the pressure that burst out from Ji-dong's body instantly increased. The 3 crowns on his head were still 3 crowns, but anyone could see that the current him was like a flawless piece of jade, without the slightest flaw. His body that had not yet fully developed also showed the sharp lines of his muscles, full of strength and beauty. Everything was not over yet. 2 sounds of cloth tearing rang out, and a huge pair of white wings unfolded from his back. When that pair of huge wings unfolded and white light bloomed, Ji-dong's vermilion bird transformation was finally completed. A fresh and exciting feeling rose in his heart. Ji-dong only felt that his own yin-yang vortex seemed to be boiling, and the magical power within his body was crazily rotating at 3 times its original speed. He did not feel the slightest bit of pain. He only felt that he had reached an unprecedented level of strength. His right hand slowly lifted, and his left hand retracted to his side. A cluster of golden flames instantly rose up. At this time, he could no longer release the simple Bing Wu primordial yang flame. Only the golden Bing Wu primordial yang flame was worthy of Ji-dong after the vermilion bird transformation. At the same time, a huge golden phantom slowly appeared behind Ji-dong. It was a humanoid phantom, 3 meters tall, wearing a crown on his head. His face could not be seen clearly, but it had endless majesty. It was the Flame Monarch. The moment it appeared, a trace of enlightenment rose in Ji-dong's heart, and the golden color instantly swept from his back. Whether it was the vermilion bird inner armor on his body or the pair of huge vermilion bird wings on his back, at this moment had been completely stained by the golden color. Scorching golden flames rose from every corner of his body. Majestic, sacred, and inviolable majestic will instantly filled every corner of the top of the Earth Element teaching building. Ji-dong was slightly panicked. At this moment, he had never seen this golden flame before. At this moment, his Earth Element magical power no longer felt the slightest advantage, so he no longer dared to be careless. He frantically gathered his magical power, which had reached the peak of the 5 crown, and turned it into a Vajra giant shield that was 3 meters tall and 3 meters wide to block in front of him. The Earth Element was the best at defense, and the Vajra giant shield was also Ji Yifeng's strongest defensive magic skill. When the shield was in front of him, his heart slightly calmed down. He was sure that with Ji-dong's magical power, even if it was a sure kill skill, it would not be able to break through a strong defense. Even if it was the Thunder Emperor Fury, it would be impossible for him to break this Vajra giant shield in one blow. But his sense of security did not last for too long. Vaguely, he heard a low and somewhat hoarse voice in the air. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun all. Gold. There was only gold left in the eyes of the Yin-Yang Hall disciples. The spread of the golden wings and the rising golden flame that illuminated the night sky covered a distance of 5 meters in that instant, as if gliding on the ground. The pure gold, scorching Bing Wu primordial Yang's sacred fire seemed to have experienced the baptism of thousands of lifetimes. He raised his left hand back, and his right hand clenched into a fist as he punched forward. In that instant, Ji-dong's entire body seemed to have become the most dazzling golden flame. The golden flame transformed into a giant all that was 3 meters long, with an infinite golden tail of flames, as if it could pierce through the entire world in an instant. In the air, there seemed to be countless specks of light converging on the golden all, blooming with the brilliance of the midday sun. Ji-dong's Vajra giant shield was like an illusion, collapsing in the golden flames that could burn anything. In the next moment, Ji-dong's entire body had returned to normal. Apart from maintaining his previous posture, the vermilion bird armor on his body and his wings had disappeared, leaving only a tattered school uniform. And all the golden flames on his body seemed to have changed owners at this moment, completely devouring his body. Whoosh Ji Yifeng, who had turned into a ball of golden flames, rose from the roof of the Earth Elemental School building like a golden meteor. He soared into the sky and landed downstairs. Some of the people who were closest to him could clearly see that there was a horrifying hole with a diameter of half a foot between his chest and abdomen. Just like how the red heart from before was instantly destroyed, Ji Feng's own life also fell in an instant like a meteor. He, who had reached level 59 magic power and had relied on his powerful defensive demonic skills to protect himself, was actually killed in an instant by the golden flames. Ji Dong gasped for air. Crystal powder fell from his palms. The two fourth-grade crystal cores had long been drained of their magic power and had exploded in an instant. He felt a thirst in his throat, as if his menstrual blood had been sucked out of him. His body swayed slightly as he took in large gulps of pure air. Many disciples of the Yin Yang Hall, including the Thunder Emperor, flew up and chased after the falling Ji Feng. The scene had already descended into chaos. Ji Dong himself did not expect the power of his attack to be so strong that even a level 59 Earth Elemental Devil Master could not withstand it. The incantation that the flaming bar told him had helped him awaken the Vermilion Bird transformation, and the Vermilion Bird transformation had also helped him awaken the memories of the Flame Monarch. Finally, he had learned his first ultimate skill. With the energy provided by the Vermilion Bird transformation, the fundamental power of the flames of chaos in the yin-yang vortex, the amplification from the twin radiance of sun and moon gloves, and the magic power contained in the two crystal cores, he had truly unleashed the ultimate skill of the Flame Monarch, a skill that should have required the power of 5 crowns to fully grasp the brilliant sun all. No matter how chaotic the surroundings were, Raging Flame, who was dressed in a red dress, acted as if she did not see anything at all. Step by step, she walked in front of him, held his hand, and said, "Little Ji Dong, do you know that you're the first man to fight for me? Thank you for making me feel this way." Ji Dong looked at his right hand, which was emitting a burnt smell, and said with a bitter smile, "Unfortunately, I still do not have the power to protect you." The flaming bar took another step forward and actually kissed him on the cheek and said, "I believe that one day you will definitely have that kind of power. Now, tell me the name of that cup of wine." Ji Dong's gaze was infatuated, and there was a fiery glow in his eyes. He said, "It's called Eternal Love. I created it for you, and it also represents my beating heart for you. Eternal love, eternal love. Unfortunately, I didn't get to drink it. Ji Dong, there's something I have to tell you. Previously, you saw me cultivating in the Earth Core Lake. This time, when I go back, I will start cultivating in seclusion. I will also temporarily close the Earth Core Lake. As for how long, I can't tell. It might be a month, or it might be a year. During this period, you have to take care of yourself. When I finish cultivating, I will naturally inform you." Ji Dong was shocked and did not care about the lingering soft taste on his face. He said, "You're going to cultivate in seclusion? Flaming Bar, are you all right?" The Flaming Bar smiled and shook her head and said, "Why would I be all right? Don't forget, I am the Empress of the Flaming Bar. Ji Dong, I have to go back. I will always remember the way you mixed the wine and fought for me today. Although we can't meet for the time being, but I will still be watching everything that happens to you in this world. Goodbye." With one step, the Flaming Bar seemed to be stepping on a layer of red muslin. In the next step, he was already out of the venue and quietly disappeared. However, at this moment, no one paid attention to her. The venue was already in a mess. A blue-purple light flashed, and Fury jumped down from the top of the stairs. He shot towards Ji Dong's side and quickly stuffed the 2 tokens into his excited hands and said in a deep voice, "Little junior brother, quickly follow me." Without any explanation, he pulled Ji Dong and soared into the air, leaping down the stairs again from another direction. The 5th floor was nothing to the Thunder Emperor. In mid-air, a blue-purple bolt of lightning slashed out from his hand, and the tearing space welcomed the low roar of the giant dragon. A dragon-shaped bolt of lightning forcibly helped them stop their fall. Fury pulled Ji Dong with one hand and pushed the air with the other, suddenly changing direction and landing on the back of the purple thunder heavenly dragon that had just soared into the sky. The purple thunder, heavenly dragon, and Fury were telepathically connected. It spread its wings and soared out of the heavenly STEM Academy. Just as he flew out of the academy with Ji-dong, numerous figures had already flashed out of the Earth Element's teaching block. Chapter 92. Senior brother, what are you doing? Ji-dong asked doubtfully. After using the brilliant sun all, his entire body had become slightly fragile. After being hit by the purple thunder heavenly dragon, his entire body was in excruciating pain. He had no choice but to take out a rank 3 crystal core to absorb the demonic energy. The Thunder Emperor Fury's expression was calm as he said, "Little junior brother, you've gotten into trouble. You shouldn't have killed that fellow. I've checked. Ji Yifeng is already dead. I've been guarding against him killing you, but I didn't expect him to be the one killed instead." Ji-dong smiled bitterly. "I didn't intend to kill him either. It's just that I couldn't control the power of that blow. Senior brother, I didn't hold back during the challenge. I'm willing to accept the Academy's punishment. You don't have to make things difficult for me." "Punishment? If you don't leave, you'll be dead." Fury snapped. "Do you know who you killed?" Although Ji Yeshang is also a member of the royal family of the Middle Earth Empire, he's from Side Branch. If Ji Yeshang was the one who died, with the status of the Heavenly Deity Academy in the mainland, you might not be in too much of a problem. However, if the person who died was the heir of the Middle Earth Empire, it would be a huge problem. Even the headmaster of the Heavenly Deity Academy, Ji Mingxian, was once the emperor of the Middle Earth Empire. He's also Ji Yifeng's ancestor and the grandfather of the current emperor of the Middle Earth Empire. Under such circumstances, how could they let you go? Ji-dong had never expected that he would cause such a huge disaster due to his righteous indignation. However, he was still filled with joy and didn't regret it at all. For the sake of the flaming bar, he wouldn't even frown if he had to kill the emperors of the 5 great empires, let alone a mere heir. "Senior brother, I've caused you trouble." Fury lowered his head to look at Hyoheim in surprise. "Little junior brother, I'm really impressed that you can still be so calm in such a situation. It seems like you have many secrets. However, this isn't the time to talk about this. Lesion's target is too obvious. After leaving the city, I'll have to put you down. The further you go, the better. Don't ever come back. Find a chance to return to the Southern Fire Empire." Ji-dong asked, "Senior brother, will you be in trouble?" Fury laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm the Earl of the 5 Nations. I'm not the one who killed Ji Yifeng. What can they do to me? Who can prove that I'm the one who took you away? In fact, I've always disliked him, but because of his identity, I didn't do anything to him. Instead, you've helped me deal with him. Junior brother, if it weren't for the fact that Master's wife isn't in the academy, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to take you away. With Master's wife around, at least you'll be treated fairly, but not now. Even Master can't stop them. If there are too many people searching for you, you should temporarily go to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range to find the Vermilion Bird." The Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon's flying speed was extremely fast. While the two brothers were talking, they had already flown out of the Central Plains city. Indistinctly, Ji-dong could already see several rays of light rapidly approaching from the sky behind them. Under Fury's command, the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon folded its wings and descended. Fury shouted in a low voice, "Junior brother, take care of yourself. We brothers will definitely meet again one day. I hope that you'll have become a true expert by then. Jump!" Just as the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon was about to reach the ground, Fury grabbed Ji-dong's body with one hand and threw him out with a great force. The force carried a bit of traction. After Ji-dong's feet landed on the ground, he did a quick roll to neutralize the momentum. The Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon seemed to have never stopped, drawing a huge arc in the air and once again soaring into the sky. Ji-dong could clearly see that Fury was waving at him. As the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon didn't stop at all, the lightning on its body became even more obvious. As it changed direction and accelerated, the rays of light chasing after it also changed direction at the same time and chased closely. He could even faintly feel that the various elemental fluctuations in the air were strong to an unimaginable degree. Ji-dong still clearly remembered that Fury had once told him that he wasn't the only Dragon Demon Master in the Heavenly STEM Academy. Without a doubt, The ones chasing after him should be the other few, and all of them were experts in the world of demon masters. With waves of weakness, Ji Dong felt his eyelids grow heavy, as if his entire body had fallen apart. Even though his body had been soaked in dragon blood, it was still sore and powerless at this moment. Even he himself hadn't expected that the Flaming Monarch's sure kill technique that he'd comprehended under the influence of the vermilion bird transformation would be so powerful. Even if his opponent didn't take him seriously, he was still the second in the Yin Yang school, an opponent with magic power as high as level 59. Yet, he'd been instantly killed by his charged attack. Even though there were other aspects of the competition where Ji Dong had a lot of advantages, there was no need to doubt the power of the Flaming Monarch's sure kill technique. Ji Dong didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt in killing his opponent. Ji Yifeng had destroyed the fine wine he brewed for the flaming bar. In his heart, his crime was unforgivable. Thinking back to the moment when the flaming bar had appeared at the ball, Ji Dong couldn't help but smile faintly. He could clearly feel the changes that the flaming bar had brought to him. But why did she go into closed-door cultivation? Wasn't her strength something that even the vermilion bird was afraid of? Compared to his own current situation, agitation was more worried about the flaming bar. The more the flaming bar didn't say anything, the more intense the worry in his heart became. Ji Dong knew that he couldn't stay here for too long. However, how could it be that easy to use the Flame Monarch's ultimate technique? Under normal circumstances, he would have to wait until Ji Dong's cultivation had reached 5 champions before he could use the two sovereigns' ultimate techniques. However, after he had used the vermilion bird transformation to fuse with the vermilion bird's inner armor, in addition to the 2 level 4 crystal cores and the intense killing intent in his body, he had actually comprehended the Flame Monarch's ultimate technique, Forbidden 100,000 Brilliant Sun Cone Nail. Not to mention Ji Dong himself, even the flaming bar, who had taught him how to use the vermilion bird transformation, had not expected it. The flaming bar's original thought was that Ji Dong could use the vermilion bird's inner armor to unleash an even stronger attack, in addition to the two sovereigns' ultimate fire and Ji Dong's dual element combination technique, which would cause his opponent to suffer a heavy blow. However, who would have thought that what Ji Dong had comprehended would actually reach the level of an ultimate technique? This caused a dramatic change in the situation. The two sovereigns' ultimate techniques could not be compared to the ultimate techniques that could be used after 3 champions in normal mode. Back then, when Ji Dong had encountered the Fire Demon Master in the Earth Spirit Mountain range, it was because of the aura of the opponent's ultimate technique that Ji Dong's two sovereigns' wills had erupted, causing the illusion of the Dark Flame Devil King to appear and break the opponent's ultimate technique in an instant. This was because Ji Dong's cultivation was not high enough. If his abilities were a little stronger, he could even reach the point where he was immune to all fire elements. Hence, after using the Flame Monarch's ultimate technique, Ji Dong's magic had been completely overdrawn. If not for the protection of the vermilion bird's inner armor, and the fact that his body had been soaked in dragon blood, he might have directly fainted from overdrawing his energy at the ball. Now, he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. The condition of his body simply didn't allow him to leave. Even Fury didn't know that Ji Dong had already overdrawn to such an extent. Clenching his teeth, Ji Dong turned over and climbed up. It was dark all around him. The place where Fury had put him down was in the bushes next to the forest. His tattered clothes had been torn to strips by the bushes, but it didn't harm his skin at all. The fire mythical beast vermilion bird had relied on its phoenix feathers to stain several kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures to pierce his skin. The so-called vermilion bird's inner armor was actually a part of his skin, where it could be said that the skin contained energy. Its great effect would gradually appear along with a gradual increase of Ji Dong's strength. If not for this vermilion bird's inner armor being extremely marvelous, how could the flaming bar return the favor by letting Ji Dong send the vermilion bird one of her life source red lotus seeds? The rank 3 fire element core in his hand turned into powder again, absorbing the mana that should have filled a 3-crown fire magus. Ji Dong only felt a little better, that's all. His ultimate dual flames were different from ordinary flames. After purifying and filtering ordinary flames, only a small portion of the ultimate dual flames would be left, let alone a Tier 3 crystal core. Even 2 Tier 4 crystal cores would barely be enough to replenish his mana to the brim. Jidong knew very well that he couldn't stay here. The one he killed was the heir to the throne of the Central Empire. If he was caught, paying with his life would be the lightest punishment. If he wanted to leave this place as soon as possible, he had to first recover his mana and stamina. Quickly entering the forest, he walked as deep as he could and stopped in an especially dense forest. The feeling of dizziness was even stronger than before. Jidong sat cross-legged in the bushes, each hand holding a 4th-grade fire essence crystal. Fortunately, he had gained quite a lot in the Earth Spirit Mountain range, and now was the time to put it to good use. He couldn't afford to be extravagant. He had to recover as soon as possible. Immersing his will into mana, Jidong called out to the fire element in the outside world. At the same time, he began to quickly absorb the mana in the 2 4th-grade essence crystals, trying his best to increase the speed of his cultivation recovery. Central Plains City, Imperial Palace. Pa! The teacup in his hand fell to the ground, smashing into powder. The body of the elder in the golden robe swayed, and his expression immediately became extremely ugly. This elder's golden robe was very exquisite. On his chest was a 3-eyed whale-shaped 6 earth element totem, Tiani, and on his back was a 5 earth element totem, a large silver bird in the sky. Wearing the 7 treasures purple gold crown, he was the current emperor of the Central Empire, Ji Yunlu. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. In the Yinyang Hall, aside from the Thunder Emperor Fury, who else could surpass my grandson Yifeng? Even if Fury made a move, he wouldn't be able to kill him in one hit. The 5 earth element is the most proficient in defense. I don't believe it. I definitely don't believe it. Ji Yunlu usually gave others the feeling that he was steady and gentle. But at this moment, the mind of this emperor of the largest empire in the radiant 5-element continent was in complete chaos, because his only direct bloodline successor had actually died just like that. Moreover, not even a corpse was left behind and had already been transformed into ashes. How could he accept this? Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. The dead cannot come back to life. The most important thing right now is to figure out the truth and capture the murderer to avenge the Crown Prince. However, this matter concerns the Heavenly STEM Academy's Yinyang Hall. Your Majesty must be careful when handling this matter. There was only a middle-aged man in his 50s in a golden robe standing in the chamber. Gold was the most noble symbol in the Central Empire, and usually only members of the royal family could wear it. Ji Yunlu's face was a little pale, and a hint of savagery flashed in his eyes. He said, Li Ming, go and investigate this matter. No matter what methods you use, you must capture the murderer. I'll personally go to the Heavenly STEM Academy right now and ask my grandfather to uphold justice for Yifeng. Yes, Your Majesty. When the middle-aged man called Li Ming replied, his figure had already disappeared. He was so fast that he was like a golden ray of light. It was not just the Central Empire's palace that was in chaos. The entire Heavenly STEM Academy was in chaos as well. It had been many years since something like this had happened. If an ordinary student had died in a spar, it would not be a big deal to the Heavenly STEM Academy. However, the one who died this time was indeed the second-in-command of the Yinyang Hall. He was the crown prince of the Central Empire, the next emperor, and the only direct great-great-grandson of Ji Mingxian, the dean of the Heavenly STEM Academy. Ji Mingxian stood in front of a pile of ashes, holding an earthen yellow rank 5 crystal core in her hand. Her expression was dark and uncertain. No one dared to approach her, because everyone could feel that this Lord Dean could explode at any moment. Not long after, 5 different colored figures arrived in the distance. The one flying at the front was the Thunder Emperor, Fury, and his purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon. Only when they returned did Ji Mingxian slowly raise his head, the light in his eyes flickering. With a deep dragon roar, the purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon was the first to land. The Class 8 dragon was not caught by the people behind it in the end. 2 of the 4 streaks of light that landed after it were also Class 8 dragons, except their elemental affinity was different from the purple thunder heavenly dragon. There were also 2 large birds of different shapes, Class 7 magical beasts. On the backs of the 4 powerful magical beasts sat a board member of the Heavenly STEM Academy. In the entire Heavenly STEM Academy, only the magical beast companions of the 4 board members could fly. One of them was Zhurong with a Class 8 fire dragon. "Brat, why are you running? Where's Jidong? What's going on?" Zhurong leapt off the fire dragon's back and immediately appeared before Fury in a flash. He asked furiously. Chapter 93. Facing the teacher's question, Fury showed a helpless expression. "Teacher, I'm also curious. Why are you all chasing after me? I'm also looking for my junior." Zhurong was stunned for a moment. With his back facing the others, a puzzled look appeared in his eyes. However, Fury's expression didn't change. He looked very calm, as if he really didn't know where Jidong had gone. Director Shui, who was standing not far behind Dean Ji Mingxian, said in a low voice, "Fury, stop pretending. Someone saw you leave the academy with Jidong. Jidong killed Yifeng in a challenge. This matter is very important. If you try to cover up for him again, you will be severely punished by the academy." Zhurong suddenly turned around and glared at Director Shui. "Old devil Shui, what do you mean by this? Before things are clear, we can't say who's right and who's wrong. All of you shut up." Ji Mingxian shouted angrily. 2 rays of cold lightning flashed in her eyes as she looked at Fury. "Where did Jidong go? Fury, you're the person involved. Tell me what's going on." It wasn't easy to punish Fury. As the first seat of the Yinyang Hall, Fury had made great contributions in the 2 battles of the Holy Evil battlefield. Even as the Dean, he couldn't do anything to him without absolute evidence. Moreover, it wasn't Fury who had killed Ji Feng. He could only suppress his anger. Fury smiled bitterly and helplessly. "Dean, to be honest, no matter me or the other disciples of the Yinyang Hall, I'm afraid none of us could understand what had happened. Jidong was an excellent bartender. When he was making drinks for his girlfriend, Yifeng broke his flask without any reason, which caused Jidong to challenge him. But who knew? According to the way they had agreed on, Jidong only launched one attack at Yifeng, which caused him to be sent flying off the building and suffer irreparable injuries. At that time, even though Yifeng was careless, he still used his strongest defensive skill to defend himself. Jidong had just broken through the level of 3 champions. Who would believe that he could kill a level 59 Earth magician with one attack? At that time, we were all stunned. I immediately went downstairs to check on Yifeng, but when I returned to the roof, Jidong had already disappeared. So I summoned Thunder to chase after him, but I couldn't find any trace of him. Hearing Fury's words, Ji Mingxuan's face darkened even more. She turned to Zhu Rong and said, "Brother Zhu, you've really taught your disciple well. The Bingwu Primordial Yang Holy Fire. You should give me an explanation." Zhu Rong's face was expressionless as he said, "After Jidong entered the Yin-Yang school, although I'm called a teacher, I didn't teach him anything. I also didn't teach him the skills he used. As for the origin of these skills, I don't know either. Believe it or not, I have a clear conscience. That's right, I know that Jidong has the ability to cast the 3rd Yuan Yang Holy Fire. I can tell you honestly that his dual fire is the ultimate dual fire. At the same time, he can cast the Ding Si Dark Spirit Fire. Zhao Rong has already reported this to our teacher, and our teacher has decided to teach Jidong himself. That's why I didn't teach him anything. This is all I can say. I'm very surprised about Yifeng's death, and I'm also very regretful. However, this was started by him. Special 49 challenged Special 2 and killed him. No one could have expected this result. The most important thing now is to find Jidong. If I remember correctly, if a disciple of the Yin-Yang school accidentally kills a disciple in a challenge, according to the rules of the school, the punishment is at most 1 year. Director Shui snorted coldly and said, "Accidentally killed? I think it's murder." Zhu Rong coldly glanced at him and said, Wait until my teacher, Yin comes down. If you still dare to say this, I will admire you. Otherwise, please keep your mouth shut. You. Director Shui's expression changed, but he didn't say anything in the end. Ji Mingxuan's expression kept changing and said, Brother Zhu, you should know that Yifeng is the only direct descendant of the imperial family of the Central Earth Empire. Zhu Rong slightly nodded. Headmaster, the dead can't come back to life. I can understand your feelings. Please restrain your grief. If we catch Ji Dong, I will definitely punish him severely. Fury, what are you still standing here for? Hurry up and find your junior brother and bring him back to be punished severely. Yes, teacher, I'll go now. Fury had always known that his teacher was tough, but he didn't expect that his teacher would be so tough when facing the headmaster Ji Mingxian and the other board members. Under the pressure of Yin Zhaoyong and Yin Zhaorong, no matter how angry Ji Mingxian was, he didn't dare to do anything. The reason why Ji Mingxian didn't act up was not only because of Zhu Rong's threat, but also because of reason. After learning the bad news that Ji Yifeng was killed by Ji Dong, he and the other board members immediately investigated all the disciples of the Yin Yang school. What happened was similar to what Fury had said. Surprisingly, not a single person thought that Ji Dong was at fault, and the whole thing was indeed provoked by Ji Yifeng. According to Zhu Rong, this matter was attributed to an accidental killing in a challenge. There was nothing to nitpick about, and he even seemed to be very magnanimous. Ji Yifeng, as the second most powerful person in the Yin Yang school, had bullied Ji Dong, who was ranked 49th. This itself had made Ji Mingxian feel humiliated. What would he say now? He only hoped that his people and the people of the royal family could find Ji Dong first. Only then would he have the chance to avenge his great-grandson. In his heart, he was even more regretful. Because Ji Yifeng was the only child, he had spoiled him too much, which caused a flaw in his character. Of course, this flaw in his character was directly related to the fact that he was always suppressed by Fury, the Thunder Emperor, to be the second most powerful person in the Yin Yang school. Taking a long breath, Ji Dong slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were shining again. After a whole 2 hours, the magic power in his body had basically recovered. His body, which had been soaked in dragon blood, once again showed a strong vitality. Under such a situation, his body had basically adjusted along with the recovery of his magic power. His strength had been restored, but he was at a loss in his heart. Where should he go next? Since he was reborn into this world, he had been practicing since he met Yang Bingtian for more than 4 years. A simple and somewhat boring life had become his habit. The only places he could go were the academy and the core world. At this moment, he could not go back to the academy, and the flaming bar had entered a state of closed-door training. He could not go to the core world either. What should he do now? No matter what, it was better to leave this place first. It was better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. He had never had a good look at this brand new world. He would just wander around the Radiance continent. With his current strength of 3 champions, he could go anywhere in the world. He could practice while walking. When the flaming bar was done with his closed-door training, he would go to the core world to accompany her. Ji Dong stood up and stretched his body. It was already late at night. After another 2 hours, the sky would brighten. He decided to head towards the earthly spirit mountain range first. After all, he had been there twice, so he must be familiar with the route. If he were to encounter people from the Academy or the Central Empire, it would be easy for him to escape using the earthly spirit mountain range where there were many magical beasts. However, he did not plan to disturb the vermilion bird and escape through the earthly spirit mountain range. He did not plan to disturb the vermilion bird. Although he did not know how far it would go, he would definitely be able to reach the Eastern wood Empire in the east. That would be the first stop of his world tour. At this moment, his upper body was bare. His skin shone with a faint white halo under the moonlight. Just as he was about to take out a piece of clothing from his storage bracelet to wear, a neutral voice suddenly sounded in his ear. So it's here. I've finally found you. Ji Dong's heart sank. He reacted in the first instant. His body suddenly pounced to the side, releasing his magical power in an instant. Black and gold, the ultimate dual fire burst forth, transforming into a glaring and powerful ultimate flame to protect his body. The neutral voice let out a soft cry of surprise. By the time Ji Dong flipped over and stood up from the ground, a large patch of shrubs had already been turned into ashes by the ultimate dual fire that was emitted from his body. The left side was black, while the right side was gold. The dual-colored flames burned fiercely in the pitch-black night. Sacred and eerie. Two completely opposite feelings appeared on the same person at the same time, giving off a strong contrast. 5 figures silently appeared in the forest. 4 of them each took a position, while the last person stood 5 meters in front of Ji Dong, watching him quietly. The 4 people around him were all wearing silver light armor. They looked to be in their 30s. Their auras were heavy, and their dense killing intent caused even the air to solidify. Every one of them stood in a direction, as though they were the guardians of that area. It gave off an unbreakable feeling from the bottom of their hearts. The most terrifying thing was their eyes. Every one of them had no emotions in their eyes. For people, 8 gazes focused on Ji Dong, as though they were looking at a dead man. The person closest to Ji Dong was not wearing any armor, nor did he have any weapons. His body was covered in a golden robe, and his hands were behind his back. He looked at Ji Dong with a thoughtful look in his eyes. "You're Ji Dong, right?" The middle-aged man opened his mouth. After a brief shock, Ji Dong quickly calmed his mind. He knew that it would be difficult for him to win today. He was still a step too late, but it was impossible for him to surrender. The middle-aged man said, "My name is Huang Liming, the chief of the Imperial Guards of the Central Plains Empire." The middle-aged man said, "My name is Huang Liming, the head of the Central Plains Empire's Imperial Guard. I believe you know why we are here. Third Wu Primordial Yang, Sacred Flame. Ding Si Underworld Spiritual Fire. 3 crowns of cultivation. At the age of 15, I have to say that you are a genius, perhaps the most unique genius I have ever seen. Even the Thunder Emperor, Fury, who is ranked #1 in your school of Yin Yang, didn't have your current strength at your age. Although I still find it hard to believe how you managed to kill His Highness the Crown Prince. Your strength is indeed shocking. It's a pity that no matter how talented you are, it would be meaningless if you fall before you mature." Ji Dong looked at him coldly and said, "Are you done?" Huang Liming smiled indifferently and said, "What? Are you still planning to resist?" Ji Dong did a simple stretch of his body. He also smiled, and it was a very relaxed smile. His white teeth revealed a hint of determination under the illumination of the dual-colored flames. The domineering look in his eyes was filled with endless arrogance. He said, "There will only be 2 outcomes when you find me. Either I kill all of you here, or you take my corpse away. Come!" Asterisk boom. Asterisk the ultimate dual flames burned fiercely. The twin radiance of sun and moon gloves on Ji Dong's hands each emitted an intense flame that was more than a meter tall. The ultimate dual flames completely suppressed each other. The surging and explosive extreme, Yang fire, and the cold and deep extreme, Yin fire accompanied Ji Dong's stubborn eyes and burst forth with a strong conviction. Huang Liming praised, as expected of a disciple of our Yin Yang school. Facing a strong enemy, you do not have the slightest bit of cowardice. Instead, you are stimulated to even greater combat strength. Unfortunately, all of this is useless. No matter how strong the ultimate dual flames are, you have not displayed their strength. Actually, I do not like the Crown Prince very much. His personality is not compatible with his benevolent earth element, but the imperial decree cannot be disobeyed. I will still bring you back. Don't try to resist. I can honestly tell you that before the Thunder Emperor, I was the first seat of the Yin Yang school." As he spoke, a layer of dazzling flames erupted from Huang Liming's body. It was a scarlet bang fire. This chief of the Imperial Guards of the Central Plains Empire was actually not of the earth element, but of the fire element, just like Ji Dong. More importantly, above her head, Ji Dong could clearly see the 6 peaks on the white sun crown shining with the scarlet flame brand. On the crown ring below, there were even 3 bright red stars. Level 66 Bing, Fire Heaven Scholar. Without a doubt, although this middle-aged man in his 50s was the previous Yin Yang school's first seat, in terms of talent, he was much inferior to the Thunder Emperor, Fury. Fury already had the strength of level 69 and was only 29 years old. However, a level 66 Heaven Scholar was already a first-rate expert in the world of yin and yang magician. 6 crowns in itself was the dividing line for magicians. Many people could not break through this level in their entire lives. Once they surpassed 6 crowns, not only would there be a qualitative leap in their strength, they would also be able to have their own magical beast mounts like Fury. This chief of the Imperial Guards, Huang Liming, was far from being comparable to Ji Yifeng in terms of strength and battle experience. Although the attributes of Huang Liming's Bang Fire were still suppressed by Ji Dong's ultimate dual flames, the difference in level and magic power made Ji Dong feel an enormous pressure. Chapter 94. Bathed in the crimson flames, the golden-robed Huang Liming's aura grew even stronger. At the same time, the 4 silver-armored warriors around him also drew their swords that were 3 feet, 6 inches long, and 3 inches wide. The 4 of them emitted different lights, and they all had white sun crowns on their heads, representing Yang Wood, Yang Earth, Yang Water, and Yang Gold respectively. In addition to the Yang Fire that Huang Liming had obtained, he was of the Yang attribute of the 5 elements. Even though the other 4 only had the strength of 4 champions, the combination of the 5 elements before them was clearly not something that the 5 people that Ji Dong had killed in the Earth Spirit Mountain range could compare to. Huang Liming did not seem to be in a hurry to deal with Ji Dong. He said, "There's no point in resisting." Even though the 4 of them are not from the Yin Yang Hall, they are official students of the Heavenly STEM Academy hired by the Imperial family of the Middle-earth Empire. They have all participated in a battle of life and death on the battlefield of the Saint and Evil once, and have extremely rich combat experience. Surrender and come back with us, and His Majesty may not kill you. Ji Dong said disdainfully, "You're just saying all this to break my will to fight. It's useless. I dare to challenge the level 59 Ji Yifeng. Do you think I'll be afraid? If you have the ability, then take my corpse away." As he spoke, he silently accumulated his magic power. It was precisely because the difference in strength between the 2 sides was too great that she had no scruples at this moment. Killing 1 was enough. Killing 2 was a profit. This was Ji Dong's current thinking. He did not believe that he would have any chance of survival after being captured. Huang Liming placed his hands behind his back and said calmly, "I heard that you're a new student of the Heavenly STEM Academy. Since you refuse to come to your senses, then I'll show you the strength of an official graduate of the Heavenly STEM Academy, the 5 Elemental Force Field." With Huang Liming in the lead, the 5 Yang Attribute Demon Masters released their mana of their respective attributes at the same time. The instant the 5 Yang Attribute Demon Masters' mana rose, Ji Dong could only feel a surge of energy ripples suddenly sealing off all the space around him. It was as if he had fallen into a gigantic cage, and the immense pressure almost instantly caused his ultimate dual flames to become twice as bright. At the same time, he was no longer able to communicate with the fire element in the outside world. In midair, the 5 colors of green, red, yellow, white, and black intertwined with each other. With the red light of the 3rd flame emitted from Huang Liming's body as the lead, the situation of his attributes being suppressed was reversed in an instant. Although Ji Dong's ultimate dual flames were strong, it could no longer produce an absolute suppression in terms of attributes. Instead, the huge yang magic of the 5 elements made it hard for him to move. Ji Dong had learned quite a lot over the past few years. However, other than his yin and yang attribute combination technique and one-on-one elemental suppression, this was the first time he had seen the 5 elements magic being used in such a way. It was no wonder that magic masters were used to forming groups of 5 when they were on a mission, forming a camp of the same 5 elements magic of the same attribute. At this moment, they were able to produce such a powerful effect just by releasing their respective mana. The 5 elements magic automatically combined, forming a mutually reinforcing force. With their attributes complementing each other, they were like a perfect circle. A layer of surging white light instantly spread out from within Ji Dong's body, and a loud and clear cry of a phoenix resounded throughout the world. A snow-like white light condensed behind Jidong's back, forming a huge white phoenix with its wings spread out, ready to take flight. The appearance of this white phoenix, which was close to the chaos element, caused the initially harmonious five elements force field in the air to fluctuate violently. Accompanied by the loud cry of the phoenix, the white phoenix seemed to have also felt the pressure brought by the five elements force field. As it flapped its wings, an intense white light filled the sky. With a poof, it actually forcibly pierced through the five elements force field, causing the five elements magic to return to the bodies of the five people led by Huang Liming. With Jidong's strength, it was originally impossible for him to do this. However, it should not be forgotten that the origin of yin and yang crown in his body already had a bit of chaos origin. Although this bit of chaos origin came from the chaotic fire of the flaming bar, if not for Jidong helping the vermilion bird incubate its child, the vermilion bird's third fire magic and the solar erosionine fire in the vermilion bird's egg collided and created the embryonic form of chaos. No matter how powerful the flaming bar was, it would not have been able to help him cast that bit of chaos origin. The world was originally a piece of chaos. Chaos turned into yin and yang turned into the four symbols and the five elements. Only then did this world come into existence. The reason why the chaotic fire could shock people like Yin Zhaorong, who had an exclusive title, was because of its absolute strength. Therefore, even if the primal chaos contained in this vermilion bird transformation of Jidong was very weak, that primal chaos was not something that the five elements could suppress. In an instant, it broke through the five elements' force field. Their bodies lightened, and the originally lost elemental senses instantly returned. With the five elements' force field broken, the five people led by Huang Liming couldn't help but be shocked at the same time. The previously indifferent expressions of the four Imperial Guards also couldn't help but change. Feeling the fluctuations of primal chaos, even if they didn't completely understand what it was, they could feel that their own attributes were trembling. Opportunity. Although Jidong didn't have a lot of actual combat experience, his ability to seize opportunities was very strong. His sixth senses that surpassed ordinary people and his sharp reflexes that had been cultivated for many years allowed him to capture this fleeting opportunity in the first moment. Stamping his feet with all his might, Jidong didn't choose to charge at the four silver-armored Imperial Guards with four crowns in cultivation. Instead, he directly charged at Huang Liming, who was in front of him with a magic power of 66. At the same time, the white phoenix energy behind his back brought about a magnificent tail of flames, instantly enveloping his body. In the process of charging forward, the vermilion bird transformation was completed. The huge white wings spread out in the air, and the aura of his entire person reached its peak in an instant. The reason why he chose to attack Huang Liming, the chief of the Imperial Guards of the Central Plains Empire, instead of the four relatively weaker silver-armored Imperial Guards, was because Jidong's thinking was very clear. Huang Liming was the closest to him, and was also the strongest. If he chose to attack the others, there was no doubt that his back would be exposed to Huang Liming. Being attacked from the back by such a powerful magic master, there was no way he could survive. Another idea was to gamble. With the experience of dealing with a magic master of the third element in the Earth Spirit Mountain range, Jidong vaguely felt that his ultimate dual flames had a very strong restraining effect on magic masters of the same element. The other four silver-armored Imperial Guards were guarding the surroundings, but they definitely wouldn't have thought that he had a pair of wings. The two colored flames of gold and black turned completely golden in an instant. Jidong's entire body was like a golden meteor as he charged forward, sticking close to the ground. In the process of his body charging up, the Jidong's inner armor automatically covered him. Huang Liming could only watch helplessly as the huge white wings unfurled on Jidong's back, as well as the feather-like inner armor that covered his entire body. Although the attribute of the vermilion bird's inner armor was neutral fire with the embryonic form of chaos, its origins originated from the vermilion bird after all. The effect it produced instantly stimulated the magic power that the vermilion bird had left in Ji Dong's body, which had merged with the solar eclipse in fire to form a huge source of magic power. Then, it merged with Ji Dong's third element, primordial yang, sacred fire. In just an instant, Ji Dong's entire strength had risen to a realm that Huang Liming could never imagine. In addition, with the dual radiance of sun and moon gloves on his hands, even though Ji Dong's own magic power was only at level 31 of the three crowns, the attack power that he could erupt with was absolutely terrifying. If not for this, even if he relied on the Flame Monarch Sure-Kill technique, how could he instantly kill the 5-crown Earth Element Grandmaster Ji Feng, who was best at defense? The reason why Huang Liming was not in a hurry to make a move was that he wanted to increase his advantage to the limit. He was very clear about Ji Yifeng's strength. As the second seat of the Yin-Yang school, his strength was naturally quite valiant. If Ji Dong could instantly kill him, he must have some special ability or special magic weapon, so he had been very careful. However, when Ji Dong's true strength was truly displayed, he was still shocked. The tried and tested suppression of the 5 elements was actually easily broken by Ji Dong and the transformation of his vermilion bird inner armor. These were all beyond the scope of Huang Liming's imagination. Seeing Ji Dong transform into a golden shooting star and rush towards him, Huang Liming's expression froze. He raised his hands in front of his chest, and a huge red vermilion bird shadow appeared behind him. He punched out with both fists, and the solid scarlet red bang fire condensed into a huge red fireball in front of him. He chose to attack. Just like what Zhu Rong had said before, fire magicians were born to attack. Only when a fire magician's power was used in an attack could it release its greatest power. Without a doubt, Huang Liming had deeply understood the essence of fire magicians. The attack of a 6-crowned heaven warrior was indeed extraordinary. That fireball had a diameter of 0.5 meter, and it didn't seem to be made of energy at all. The huge fireball seemed to be made of magma, and the terrifying heat and enormous explosive energy were completely contained within it. Even Ji Dong's being Wu Primordial Yang Holy Fire could only suppress the outermost fire element, and couldn't do anything to the magic inside. Just when the golden shooting star Ji Dong transformed into was about to collide with the huge red fireball, the golden shooting star suddenly flashed for a moment, as if it had disappeared into thin air. It actually forcibly passed through the red fireball and gave the 4 silver-armored guards the feeling that it had suddenly disappeared. However, Huang Liming could clearly see that Ji Dong didn't disappear. That feeling of disappearance was because the flickering golden flames on his body had instantly turned completely black, causing his entire body to look like it had completely blended into the darkness. As for how he had passed through his own fireball, even Huang Liming himself didn't see it clearly. He only had one feeling in his heart, and that was that it was fast. Time didn't allow Huang Liming to think too much. His movements weren't any slower than Ji Dong's at all, and both of them took a step back very easily. However, this single step pushed him back 5 meters, and even left an afterimage at the place where he was previously standing. A black claw carrying the extremely cold Ding Sea Hellfire quietly swept past the afterimage. Just when Huang Liming was about to launch a counterattack, Ji Dong's figure, which had appeared in a flash, spun around at lightning speed with the help of the claw that had missed. An indescribable sense of danger instantly spread, causing Huang Liming to feel a little unprepared. He pressed both of his hands down, and his body retreated once again. With a light-chi sound, the black flames suddenly erupted from the ground. The third fire that Huang Liming had pressed down on was actually pierced through in an instant, and then the red third fire was actually surrounded and devoured by the black flames, losing its own luster. The Dark Moon Dance and the Dark Moon Flame. This was Ji Dong's true attack method. In the beginning, the Bingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Flame was just a pretense. Even an expert of Huang Liming's level couldn't help but continuously retreat by relying on the combination of the Vermilion Bird's inner armor and his own ultimate dual flames. Ji Dong's movements didn't stop. He was very clear that he only had this one chance. Once Huang Liming recovered from his previous shock, only death would await him. At the same time that the dark moon flame was released, his body had already shot up again. However, this time he didn't stick close to the ground. Instead, he shot diagonally upwards, which was also the position above Huang Liming's head. At the same time that his body leaped up, Jidong's thoughts had already merged with the white wings on his back. The wings suddenly flapped, and his body was directly pushed 10 meters into the air. The black and gold-colored flames reappeared, and the surging magic power gathered in the air to form a huge two-colored ball of light. When the two balls of flames appeared, they were so gorgeous, but the moment the two merged, they immediately shrank, and then turned into a ray of light that shot straight towards Huang Liming. It was the ultimate dual fireball. "Good!" Huang Liming shouted, and the red fireball that missed previously almost flew along with Jidong's rising body. The moment the ultimate dual fireball appeared, the red fireball had already met it. In terms of control of magic power, as a six-crown Heavenly Knight powerhouse, he was much stronger than Jidong. A violent roar suddenly exploded in the air. Huang Liming's control of his own magic power could be said to be at the top of a hair's breadth. The moment the two attacks collided, he detonated his fireball, not giving the ultimate dual fireball a chance to suppress the attributes at all. He displayed the explosive power of the third fire. This was no longer an attack based on attributes, but purely a suppression based on magic power. As the chief of the Central Empire's Imperial Guards, Huang Liming had rich combat experience. Of course, he knew what his advantages and disadvantages were, so he naturally wouldn't give Jidong another chance. The surging magic power rose in an instant, and the violent shock caused by the explosion of the two fireballs caused the entire forest to tremble. The four silver-armored Imperial Guards felt a wave of air at the same time, forcing them, who were preparing to attack Jidong, to stop and defend. Chapter 95. The ultimate double fireball against Bing Huatian Shi's lava fireball was also filled with explosive power. Once that terrifying explosive power was displayed, it was filled with the temperament of burning everything. The intense explosion of the fire element caused all the plants within a diameter of 30 meters to burn at the same time. Those that came into contact with a third fire contained in the lava fireball could still burn for a while, but if they came into contact with the ultimate double fire of Jidong's ultimate double fireball, they would immediately turn into ashes. This was the strength of attributes. In terms of strength, Jidong was undoubtedly at a disadvantage, but in this collision, he did not suffer too much. With the Yin and Yang dual attribute combination skill, the vermilion bird inner armor, the twin radiance of sun and moon gloves, and the ultimate double fire, the power of this attack of Jidong's was at least equivalent to that of a 5-crown Devil Master. Although Huang Liming was powerful, he had after all retreated twice, and the energy of the lava fireball he released had already dissipated. When he launched it again, he detonated it beforehand, causing the power to decrease. In this way, although Huang Liming still had the upper hand, it was impossible for him to truly injure Jidong. The instant the two demonic skills collided, the wings on Jidong's back suddenly closed and completely wrapped around his body. The powerful impact immediately caused his body to shoot up another 5 meters. Not good. Huang Liming's expression changed greatly. He also suddenly realized where the problem was. Jidong did not continue to attack the ground. It was not that he did not have the ability to do so, but that he did not intend to continue like this at all. He wanted to escape. At a time like this, a Heaven Knight powerhouse displayed the strength he should have. Huang Liming immediately made an extremely targeted response. A scarlet light split open behind him, and a fiery red giant lion leapt out from the crack. Huang Liming leapt up, and the giant lion also leapt up at the same time. With this leap, Huang Liming directly leapt up to a height of 15 meters, close to Jidong's height. At this time, Jidong had already stretched out his wings and fiercely flapped them downwards. He, who had never practiced flying, could only try his best to control his body's balance in the air. Fortunately, the wings given to him by the vermilion bird inner armor were too large. When the wings spread out, they automatically produced the effect of flight. The fire elements in the air converged like rivers flowing into the sea, supporting his body to climb up again. Almost at the same time as Huang Liming's leap, the distance between the two increased again. However, just as Huang Liming's upward momentum was about to stop, the giant red lion had already flown to his feet. Raising its head, the giant lion suddenly let out a furious roar. A strong burst of third fire magic instantly erupted, pushing Huang Liming's body towards Ji Dong's direction like a cannonball. His speed was so fast that it had already surpassed Ji Dong, who did not know how to use the vermilion bird in her armor. In the blink of an eye, he had caught up to her. The crimson flame turned into liquid and covered Huang Liming's whole body, condensing into a special layer of armor. Huang Liming raised his right hand, and his expression became extremely dignified. He only had this chance. If this blow could not knock down Ji Dong, then he and the people he brought would not be able to fly, and naturally, it would be impossible to catch up with Ji Dong. His right hand grasped the air, and Huang Liming's whole body erupted with an unparalleled strong aura. What was more frightening was that the third fire magic that erupted from the giant lion's roar actually attached itself to his claw. A third fire giant claw with a diameter of more than 3 meters went straight to the body of Ji Dong. In mid-air, the air within a diameter of at least 50 meters appeared to ripple like water at the moment when the flame claw appeared, and the magic elements in the air were all distorted. Ji Dong only felt that his body was sluggish. Vermilion Bird's wings were flapping, but the speed of his body's ascent was sharply reduced. The fiery red giant claw was already in front of him. It's over. This was the only thought in Ji Dong's heart. At this time, even if he wanted to trigger the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill, Brilliant Sun Cone Nail, it was too late. Forbidden 100,000. Although the power of Brilliant Sun Cone Nail was huge with his current strength, he needed sufficient time to accumulate power. How could he accumulate power in the air? It was also for this reason that he didn't use this ultimate skill before. In addition, this ultimate skill would drain all his strength. There was more than one enemy, and the seemingly powerful skill was not practical in front of him. At this time, a familiar feeling appeared. The scene that had appeared in the Earth Spirit Mountains reappeared. Ji Dong's whole body's magic instantly turned into the black Ding Si dark spiritual fire, and the 5-meter-tall figure of the Dark Flame Devil King quietly appeared behind him. With just one step, it passed Ji Dong's body and blocked in front of him. The proud and boundless will of the sovereign was instantly revealed, and a punch blasted out, hitting the center of the flame claw. However, the opponent was different, and the effect that the Dark Flame Devil King could achieve also appeared. Last time, the 3-crown Bing Fire Devil Master was directly killed by the Dark Flame Devil King. But this time, although the flame claw condensed from the 6-crown Bing Fire Heaven Warrior was forcibly blasted a big hole by the Dark Flame Devil King, the figure of the Dark Flame Devil King had also quietly disappeared. The Ding Si Dark Spiritual Fire was indeed overbearing. Its corrosive and adhesive power could even produce an effect in the face of the opponent of the same flame. Seeing that a big hole had been blasted in the center of the flame claw, the black flame was still burning fiercely at the edge of the big hole, devouring the flame claw's fire elements. Scorching Sun Devour, Scorching Sun Collapse, Scorching Sun Explosion. The Scorching Sun 3 consecutive strikes of the Scorching Sun blasted out with full force, meeting the remaining flame claw. With the appearance of the Dark Flame Devil King, the crystal core in Ji Dong's hand instantly shattered. However, he now had the support of the Vermilion Bird inner armor, and his own strength had also reached the 3-crown level, so he was not completely exhausted by the appearance of the Dark Flame Devil King. Gathering the remaining magic, he exploded with this powerful 3 consecutive strikes. The golden flames in the air were like 3 huge waves stacking together. When they collided with the flame claw, the Ding Si dark spiritual fire attached to the flame claw, and the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire of the Scorching Sun, 3 consecutive strikes of the Scorching Sun, 3 consecutive strikes of the Scorching Sun produced a mutated effect. The explosive power of the combination skill was displayed once again, and the entire sky rose into a huge flame tornado. Boom! In the end, Huang Liming's body was still blocked by this energy, and he fell together with his flame lion, while Jidong's body had already risen once again in the explosion. The wings on his back unfolded, and he constantly flapped hard, flying askew into the sky. Although this was his first time flying, the feeling of breaking through the shackles of the earth still gave Jidong a carefree feeling of soaring freely. Fly! Vermilion bird wings. When his feet landed on the ground, Huang Liming's expression became extremely ugly. He, a Heaven Knight level expert, let a 3-crown dual fire attribute magician escape from his grasp. In the eyes of others, this was definitely a laughingstock. Just at this time, suddenly, Huang Liming waved his hand and grabbed, catching something that fell from the sky. Opening his palm to look at the thing he caught, Huang Liming's expression suddenly changed drastically. His entire body seemed to tremble, an inconceivable light flashed through his eyes, and he cried out involuntarily, "No, this is impossible." In the center of his palm was a white jade tablet. There were still some ashes on it, as if the rope that originally hung it had been burned. The words Jidong were engraved on the front of the white jade tablet, and Huang Liming's gaze fell on the decorative carvings on the edges of the white jade tablet. On the left and right sides were the patterns of a lifelike lion. He quickly turned the jade tablet to look at the other side, and the other side was shockingly the pattern of a lion's head. Huang Liming's hand holding the white jade tablet began to tremble violently, and he clenched his fist tightly. When he raised his head again to look in the direction that Hyoheim had left, his gaze had already completely changed. The anger disappeared, and what replaced it was an extremely complicated light. "Chief, should we give chase?" The 4 silver-armored Imperial Guards were also greatly shocked by the scene just now. They even more so did not expect that Jidong would still be able to escape under this kind of encirclement. And from a situation of Jidong and Huang Liming's battle, that teenager actually did not seem to be at a disadvantage. Was this something a 3-crown level magician could achieve? In their hearts, the originally extremely mysterious Yin-Yang school couldn't help but add the word update. Huang Liming's expression stabilized, and he swept his eyes coldly over his 4 companions, saying, "What are you chasing for? Do you know how to fly? Immediately go back and report. If we want to catch up to this brat, we can only ask the masters to take action. I'm just afraid that there won't be enough time." "Yes." Looking in the direction that Jidong had disappeared, Huang Liming's eyes once again revealed the previous disbelief, and his hand tightened on the white jade tablet. Dongmu Empire, the coast of the East Sea. The East Sea was an extremely dangerous place for everyone in the 5 Elements mainland. Although this sea was not considered too vast, and when the weather was clear, one could even vaguely see a shadow of the 5 Elements mainland in the distance. However, in this sea, not only were there hurricanes wreaking havoc on the surface of the sea, there were also countless high-level demonic sea creatures roaming about. Experts who had tried to cross the sea had all become food for the demonic sea creatures. However, it was also this terrifying sea of death that separated the light and darkness continents and maintained the peace between the 2 continents. Less than 300 meters away from the coast of the East Sea, there was a solitary hut. The hut was made of wood, and there was a small courtyard in front of the door. Perhaps because the seaside was saline alkali land, there was nothing planted in the courtyard. Everything seemed very cold and cheerless. However, in this place where one could listen to the sound of the sea at any time, there was a certain flavor to it. At this moment, there was a person standing in front of the hut. Her blue palace dress did not move at all under the sea breeze, and the crutch in her hand was supporting her on the ground. She just stood there quietly. It was the Heavenly STEM Academy's deputy dean, Yin Xiaorong, who had the exclusive title of the Fuhua series. "Didn't I say that you shouldn't come and find me? Xiaorong, you've come for the 2nd time in a month. Do you really want me to chase you away?" A gentle and otherworldly voice came from the simple wooden hut. This voice gave people an extremely moist feeling when they heard it. Yin Xiaorong smiled faintly and said, Big brother, I didn't want to come, but this time I had no choice. How about we make a bet? If I tell you about the matter and you don't walk out of your wooden hut, I'll consider it as my loss. I won't disturb you in the future. On the contrary, you have to promise me something." The gentle voice in the wooden hut laughed and said, "Xiaorong, you're still the same as before, never willing to suffer losses. However, although this bet of yours isn't fair, I'm still willing to listen. What matter can you tell me to make me walk out of this wooden hut by myself? I haven't left this place for 10 years. Xiaorong's eyes revealed a cunning glint. At this moment, her expression was as lively as a young girl. She said, "Yin and Yang dual attribute fire magic master. Big brother, have you seen one before?" "Oh." The gentle voice was slightly surprised. "Could it be that your Heavenly STEM Academy's experiment was successful?" Xiaorong said, "No, it's not the Heavenly STEM Academy's experiment. They recruited a student from our Southern Fire Empire. His name is Jidong. Now, he can be considered as your disciple." The gentle voice said, "Zhurong, that kid accepted another disciple? Although his own talent isn't enough to break through the final barrier, in terms of accepting disciples, it's still worthy of recognition. Fury, that kid is very good. In less than 30 years, it's possible for him to strive for the exclusive title of 9 Crown. However, Xiaorong, although the Yin and Yang dual attribute fire is rare, it's not enough for me to leave the wooden hut. I've sat here for 10 years, listening to the sound of the waves every day. My heart is stable beyond your understanding." Xiaorong smiled and said, "Big brother, I haven't finished speaking. What if your disciple's Yin and Yang dual fire is the ultimate dual fire?" "Ultimate dual fire? How is that possible?" The gentle voice finally showed a trace of real emotion. Xiaorong said, "Big brother, do you think I'd lie to you? Bingwu primordial Yang sacred fire and Dingxi underworld Yin spiritual fire, the ultimate dual fire. What can a single ultimate dual fire remind you of? The ultimate dual fire combination skill, if completed by one person, is undoubtedly the most compatible." The voice in the wooden hut disappeared, and there was only the sound of the waves again. Xiaorong stood quietly at the door of the courtyard, the smile on his face becoming even wider. After a long time, a sigh came from the wooden hut. "Xiaorong, my heart has indeed been moved by you. When this child's cultivation reaches 6 crowns, bring him to see me. You and Xiaorong have found the hope of the future of fire." Xiaorong said, "Big brother, are you still not willing to come out?" The gentle voice said, "The ultimate dual fire needs a strong magic as a backing. If I'm not wrong, this child's cultivation shouldn't be high. Otherwise, he wouldn't need to be Zhurong's disciple." Xiaorong nodded, the smile on his face becoming wider. He said, "Big brother, your guess is indeed correct. This child is 15 years old this year and has just broken through 3 crowns. Even the flame of chaos is only in its embryonic form. It can't be considered powerful. At most, he will be recognized by the Vermilion Bird to forge a Vermilion Bird inner armor for him." Flame of chaos? Embryonic form? With a creaking sound, the door that had not been opened for 10 years finally opened. Chapter 96. The Earth Spirit Mountain Range. The sun shone brightly in the sky. It was a good day, and the climate in the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range was pleasant. The moist and fresh air, mixed with the fragrance of the soil and plants, was refreshing. Of course, humans could not enjoy this because this was the territory of the Bang Fire Divine Beast. Even if there were other 10th level Divine Beasts here, they would not dare to enter this area easily. The Heavenly STEM Divine Beast was undoubtedly the most powerful existence among the magical beasts in the world. However, there was an exception to everything. At this moment, in this usually forbidden area, there were 2 figures flying in circles in the sky. The 2 figures, one big and one small, one white and one red, were constantly flying in the sky. The red figure was a small golden redbird. Its body was no more than a foot long, and its wings were less than a meter in length. However, its speed in the air was unbelievably fast. It kept circling back and forth, and it was much faster than the much larger white figure. The white figure was actually a person, but he had a pair of wings on his back. Other than the difference in color, his wings were not much different from the redbird's. Although his figure was not as nimble as the golden redbird, he could still soar freely in the sky. Whir! I can't fly faster than you. My mana can't hold on much longer. The white figure stopped in the sky and spread his wings to control the stability of his body. It was really Jidong, the golden redbird, whom he called Whir, flew over and landed on his shoulder. It rubbed its head against his face, looking very intimate. Changing the angle of his wings slightly, Jidong glided down with Whir. After circling 2 times, he landed at the entrance of the vermilion bird's cave. He had been here for almost 3 months. That day, when he was being chased by the silver armored guards led by the commander of the Imperial Guards of the Central Plains, Huang Liming, he had relied on his unskilled flying skills to escape and managed to fly for a while before returning to the ground. This time, Jidong did not dare to stay any longer. He ran towards the direction of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. Initially, he had no intention of disturbing the vermilion bird. However, how could the vermilion bird not know that he had entered the Earth Spirit Mountain Range using the phoenix plume? It had even called him to its territory. In the past 3 months, Jidong had gone out a few times to check on the situation outside. He had discovered that the cities and towns near the Earth Spirit Mountain Range were filled with his wanted posters. It could be said that it was difficult to move an inch. With no other choice, he could only return to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range and stay with the vermilion bird for the time being. Jidong had inherited the skills of the 2 sovereigns, so the vermilion bird naturally wouldn't teach him any demonic skills. However, there was one thing that Jidong, who possessed the vermilion bird transformation, needed to learn from the vermilion bird, and that was how to fly. For the past 3 months, besides cultivating in the vermilion bird's cave every day, Jidong had also been practicing with the little vermilion bird in the vermilion bird's territory. Little Flame was the name that Jidong had given to the little vermilion bird. Although his innate ability to fly was not as good as Little Flame's, after using the vermilion bird transformation, he relied on his mana and the control of his wings to fly. As he practiced every day, Jidong gradually discovered the secret of the vermilion bird transformation. The vermilion bird's mana, the solar eclipse fire, and the vermilion bird's inner armor that was forged from the vermilion bird's mana had completely become a part of his body. It had already fused with his skin. Hence, its defensive ability was always there. Even if it wasn't activated, it could still be used for defense. After using the incantation that he had taught in the flaming bar to activate the vermilion bird's inner armor would be stimulated by Jidong's mana and appear. Not only could it fly, but the mana contained in the inner armor would also fuse with Jidong's own mana, greatly increasing his strength for a certain period of time. This was because it didn't mean that using the vermilion bird transformation consumed his own mana. Rather, it was the amount of time that his mana could sustain drawing on the vermilion bird inner armor's mana and the amount of energy he drew that determined his strength when using the vermilion bird inner armor. With Jidong's current strength, the vermilion bird's inner armor could support him to fly for as long as an hour. Although his flying speed could not be compared to that of a bird, it was still much faster than walking. However, the vermilion bird also reminded him that there were territories of magical beasts in the sky. When flying, he should try not to rise too high in the sky to avoid being attacked by flying magical beasts. The more Jidong practiced flying, the more he felt the wonders of the vermilion bird transformation. As a human, being able to soar freely in the sky like a bird was a wonderful feeling that no one could resist. Over the past 3 months, Jidong's mana had also increased from level 31 to level 32. Although his cultivation speed was not as fast as before, with the ability to fly and the application of the vermilion bird transformation, his strength had undoubtedly increased by a level. The little vermilion bird stood on Jidong's shoulder and looked around. Perhaps it was because Jidong was the first male she had seen since she was born, so she had always been very affectionate towards Jidong. When they returned to the vermilion bird's cave, the vermilion bird stood on the phoenix blood parasol tree and watched their return. There was a gentle look in her eyes as she chirped softly. Fire, or had already soared from Jidong's shoulder and threw herself into her mother's arms. Seeing that Hyoheim was moving, the vermilion bird's eyes were filled with unconcealable gratitude. Jidong, you have basically grasped the flying technique. Now, what you lack is the support of fire and mana. Mana is the foundation of everything, and flying is no exception. Only when your mana becomes stronger will you be able to fly faster and perform more flying techniques. Ji-Ching nodded and said, I understand. Thank you, Vermilion Bird. The Vermilion Bird shook her head gently and said, Don't say thank you to me. I should be the one saying that. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a daughter. You've helped me once again. Ever since you came here, in order to nurse Fire-Er's body, you've slowed down the speed of your cultivation. You even have to pour a portion of your cultivated mana into Fire-Er's body every day. I really don't know how to thank you. As it turned out, when Jidong came to the Vermilion Bird's cave again that day, he was shocked to find that the little Vermilion Bird did not grow up healthily as he had imagined. Instead, there was a huge problem. The little Vermilion Bird had been persecuted by the solar eclipse in fire for many years and was unable to be born, so there was a very big problem with her birth. With the help of Jidong, although the solar eclipse in fire had been completely extracted, she did not die prematurely. However, her birth defect made her very different from her mother. The first was development. Due to the limitations of the solar eclipse in fire, her body had not developed. After she was born, not only did she not grow, she had continuously shrunk. The more the Vermilion Bird used its third Wu primordial yang sacred fire to nourish her, the weaker her body became. If it wasn't for the medicinal effect of the natal red lotus seed that Jidong had sent over, the little Vermilion Bird would not have been able to escape the fate of dying prematurely. It wasn't until Jidong returned that he and the Vermilion Bird discovered the problem. It turned out that the little Vermilion Bird situation was the same as the Vermilion Bird's inner armor on Jidong's body. Her own third fire magical power and the solar eclipse in fire, after thousands of years, had produced a fusion effect. The reason why she was able to be born was because Jidong had extracted too much of the solar eclipse in fire, so that the two flames in her body had a balanced effect. However, when the Vermilion Bird nourished her, she could naturally only rely on the third Wu primordial yang sacred fire, causing the magical power in the little Vermilion Bird's body to once again break the balance. Not only was there no benefit, it was instead a great harm. After Jidong came here, combined with his own situation, he replaced the Vermilion Bird to nourish the little Vermilion Bird. Although his magical power was far from being comparable to the third fire mythological beast Vermilion Bird, the little Vermilion Bird had the same attribute as him. Under the nourishment of his magical power, she was pulled back from the line of death. After these few months, her life was finally saved. However, the little Vermilion Bird had been persecuted too severely for many years, and her own situation had changed greatly from her mother's. First of all, the little Vermilion Bird did not have the phoenix crown on her mother's head and that beautiful tail feather. She looked like an ordinary golden-red firebird. There was a kind of flamingo among the fire-type magical beasts, and her current appearance was similar to this magical beast. The second was strength. When a third fire mythological beast was born, it should have a cultivation of around the 7th rank, which was even higher than a giant dragon. However, although the little Vermilion Bird Hua-Er's life was back, her cultivation was only that of a 4th rank magical beast. Of course, like Jidong, she also possessed ultimate fire and also ultimate dual fire. After 3 months, the little Vermilion Bird's mana had been completely adjusted. She no longer needed Jidong to nourish her with mana, and she was finally on the right track. She accompanied Jidong to practice flying every day. Seeing that such a little life had finally recovered to health was the happiest thing that had happened to Jidong in the past 3 months. Aunt Vermilion Bird, why are you saying this? I treat Hua-Er as a younger sister. Jidong smiled. His eyes were filled with satisfaction as he looked at Hua-Er in his mother's arms. He had long since changed the way he addressed the Vermilion Bird. Hua let out a sharp chirp as if in response to Jidong. She burrowed out of her mother's arms and spread her wings. With a flap, she dove into Ji-dong's arms and kept rubbing her head against Ji-dong's face. The vermilion bird sighed and jumped down from the phoenix blood parasol tree. Ji-dong, are you preparing to leave? Ji-dong was stunned. How did you know? The vermilion bird replied. Naturally, I can tell from your reluctant expression. Ji-dong, during this period of time, I went from great sorrow to great joy, and then from great joy to great sorrow. Finally, I saw my daughter come back to life. This kind of feeling made me very tired, but I finally let it go. Our Vermilion Bird clan values karma the most. Hor has received such a great kindness from you, so she must repay you. Otherwise, she will never grow up in the future. Without waiting for the Vermilion Bird to finish speaking, Ji-dong had already resolutely interrupted the Vermilion Bird and said, Auntie, I will never let her be my mount companion. She is my little sister, and I don't need anything from her in return. I just hope that she can always be happy. The Vermilion Bird shook her head. Ji-dong, let me finish. I don't want her to be your mount, but I hope that she can accompany you as you travel the world. The lifespan of our Vermilion Bird clan is very long, tens of thousands of years. You humans have a much shorter lifespan. Letting her accompany you for 100 years is considered repaying your kindness. Furthermore, I'm also doing this out of selfishness. Although Hua-er's life is no longer in danger, I can't guess whether she can grow up or what she will become after she grows up. She can only grow up healthily under the influence of your ultimate dual fire. Furthermore, the Flaming Bar Empress helped you complete the infusion of the origin of chaos, but just a bit of the chaotic fire's aura is enough for her to benefit endlessly. It's impossible for the little fellow to inherit my mantle and become a Bing Fire Divine Beast, but I also hope that she can grow stronger and at least have the ability to protect herself. This is the first time that a situation like this has happened in our Vermilion Bird clan. Since she was born because of the solar eclipse Fire, then let's call her the Eclipse Phoenix. The name Eclipse Phoenix itself was filled with the Vermilion Bird's anger towards the solar eclipse Fire, but it was also filled with expectations for her daughter's future. Hua-er calmed down in Ji-dong's embrace. She turned her head to look at the Vermilion Bird. Although she was still unable to speak, as a descendant of a divine beast, her innate intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. Large drops of tears continuously rolled down her eyes. Suddenly, she let out a sorrowful cry and leapt from Ji-dong's embrace once again, throwing herself into her mother's embrace. Gently hugging her daughter, the Vermilion Bird's eyes were similarly hazy with tears. She lowered her head to look at her daughter and softly murmured, be good. Don't cry. Only by following your big brother Ji-dong's side will your body get better. Your big brother Ji-dong will definitely bring you back to see Mommy when he has the time. After leaving this place with your big brother Ji-dong, don't be too playful. You must cultivate more and strive to become stronger as soon as possible. If it was only to repay a debt of gratitude, Ji-dong definitely would not have allowed the Eclipse Phoenix Hua-er to leave with him. However, the Vermilion Bird wanted Hua-er to follow him to better grow. This was something he could not resist. His flame of primal chaos was still very weak, and he did not know how to use it. However, he could feel that it was precisely by relying on this tiny bit of flame of primal chaos that he was able to directly skip the process of filtering and compressing the fire element in the outside world when he was cultivating. If he had not been constantly nourishing Hua-er during this period of time, his cultivation speed would not have been any slower than when he was attempting to cultivate 3 crowns. When a Vermilion Bird saw that Hyoheim was moving, she let out a resonant phoenix cry. A layer of golden light abruptly spread from her body, transforming into a golden phoenix that was exactly the same as her true form, but completely formed from energy. It flew straight towards Ji-dong. The stagnant air made it impossible for Ji-dong to react. When the golden phoenix arrived in front of him, Ji-dong felt as if the heavens and earth were being split apart. Chapter 97. As the golden phoenix separated from the Vermilion Bird's main body flew over, the arm with the Vermilion Bird bracelet lifted up on its own and emitted a brilliant golden light. The golden phoenix burrowed into the bracelet and became one with the Vermilion Bird's demonic power. The feeling of splitting the heavens and earth became even more intense. Ji-dong even felt that his storage bracelet seemed to have come to life as it was filled with the vermilion bird's immense and tyrannical life force. The vermilion bird's surging life force spread to every corner of the cave. Her voice rang in Ji-dong's ear. I use my own demonic power to open up space to improve this bracelet for you. In the future, can live in it. There's enough space inside, and there's also a strand of my will attached to it. With this strand of will, I can always feel Hua-er's aura, and she can also feel my presence. Consider it a form of self-consolation. Ji-dong, stay for another 3 days. Let us mother and daughter spend 3 more days together. After 3 days, you can leave this place. All right. Apart from agreeing, Ji-dong didn't know what else to say. He only told himself that he had to bring Hua back to visit the vermilion bird more often in the future. 3 days later, Ji-dong left the vermilion bird's territory with the solar eclipse phoenix Hua-er, who turned back every 3 steps. On this day, all the magical beasts in the entire Earth Spirit Mountain range became restless. This was because the divine beast of fire, the vermilion bird, was circling in the sky above the Earth Spirit Mountain range, causing all the magical beasts to lie dormant. Finally, she couldn't see her mother anymore. Hua-er burrowed into Ji-dong's modified vermilion bird bracelet. Ji-dong's heart ached when he saw her sorrowful expression, but he could only hope that she could adapt to life in the outside world as soon as possible. Leaping into the air, the yin-yang vortex in Ji-dong's chest began to revolve. He increased his speed with all his might, and with the phoenix plume in his hand, he dashed towards the east of the Earth Spirit Mountain range like an arrow. After half a day's time, he finally walked out of the Earth Spirit Mountains. Although the air outside wasn't as fresh as it was in the mountains, it gave him a sense of freedom. 3 months had passed, and he didn't know if the warrant for his arrest had been withdrawn. Even if it was still there, Ji-dong wasn't afraid. He had fully mastered the ability to fly, so it wouldn't be easy to catch him. Only someone as strong as Redif and a flying magical beast would have absolute confidence in catching him. When Ji-dong passed by a village, he discovered that the portrait that had been posted there was indeed no longer there. Time could dilute everything. Although the warrant was still there, it wasn't possible for them to continue searching so closely. After all, the Central Plains Empire had to consider whether the citizens would panic or not. Ji-dong took off his school uniform and changed into a set of ordinary clothes that he had bought with Car and Bisso before rubbing some dust on his face. He looked quite different from the portrait. It was unknown who had drawn this portrait, but Ji-dong's gaze was sharp and filled with a breathtaking, domineering aura. Although his face was a little childish, the aura he gave off was filled with danger. At this moment, since there was no portrait to compare with, and Ji-dong had intentionally concealed his aura, it would be difficult for those who weren't familiar with him to recognize him. After all, there were many 15- or 16-year-old youths like him everywhere. At this time, Ji-dong's ordinary appearance that couldn't be considered handsome played a great advantage. This kind of appearance was the least noticeable in a crowd. Ji-dong's first goal was to leave the Central Plains Empire's territory. As long as he left the Central Plains Empire, he naturally wouldn't have to worry about being wanted anymore. Thus, his first destination was the Eastern Wood Empire. However, after he started traveling, he discovered a problem. The Eastern Wood Empire was in the east of the mainland, so the direction wasn't a problem. However, the problem was that he didn't have a map of the mainland, so it would be difficult for him to resupply on the road. He also didn't know where the cities were. When he left the Southern Fire Empire, he didn't think much of it with the map provided by Bisso. However, now that he was traveling on his own, this problem became apparent. After traveling for 3 days, Ji-dong was already facing the danger of running out of food. He didn't consume much of the food stored in the Vermilion Bird bracelet when he was in the Earth Spirit Mountain range, as the Vermilion Bird had provided him with various fruits to satisfy his hunger. However, now that he was traveling on his own, he could only rely on himself. Although Hua-er's body was not big, he ate more than Ji-dong, and the dry rations they carried were already stretched thin. Looks like I'll have to find a city to resupply. Ji-dong sat on the side of the main road and thought to himself as he rested. Fortunately, he found the tunnel in front of him. There would always be pedestrians on the main road, so Jidong decided to find someone to inquire about the location of the near city. Then, he would go there to buy a map, food, water, and a few sets of clothes to tidy himself up before continuing on his journey. The further he was from the Central Plains city, the safer he would be. A conservative estimate was that he was currently more than 1,500 miles away from the Central Plains city. After eating the last bit of his rations and leaving the last piece of cured meat for fire, Jidong was about to continue on his journey when he suddenly discovered that there seemed to be a few people rapidly approaching him. These people were very fast. Because they weren't far away, Jidong could only vaguely see that there seemed to be a person running at high speed in front of him. Behind him, there were 4 or 5 people chasing him. It was obvious that they weren't ordinary people. He could vaguely see the light of magic shining from them. Gradually, these people got closer. Jidong saw that the one running at the front was a youth about 16 or 17 years old. He was dressed in plain clothes, and his face was covered with dust. His clothes were already torn, and there were many places where blood seeped out. Chasing behind him were 4 youths in their 20s. All of them were dressed in gorgeous clothes, including Bao Ku and the youth running at the front. All 5 of them had yin-yang crowns condensed on top of their heads. The youth at the front had 2 yang crowns on top of his head. There was a black water mark on the crown of the yang crown. He was an earth element demon master with 2 crowns. Of the 4 people chasing behind him, 2 were earth element, 1 was earth element like the youth, and the last one was metal element. The yang crowns on top of their heads were all at the level of 2 crowns. Seeing that they were almost in front of Jidong, the youth running at the front suddenly staggered. A yellow light flashed on the body of the earth element youth behind him, and the ground seemed to tremble slightly. The earth element youth tripped and rolled on the ground. When he stood up again, he was surrounded by the 4 youths and was only a dozen meters away from Jidong. Yin Tianji, let's see where you can run this time. The older of the 2 earth element youths said with a fierce look in his eyes. The earth element youth called Yin Tianji pursed his lips tightly. Although his face was covered with dust, one could still see his extraordinary appearance. He had sword-like eyebrows, tiger-like eyes, a straight nose, and a square mouth. He was very handsome, but he gave off a very cold feeling. He didn't speak, and only looked at the youth who spoke with a stubborn and hateful gaze. Black, demonic power fluctuated around his body. Obviously, he didn't plan to be captured. The earth element youth snorted coldly and said, "You still dare to look at me like that at a time like this? Yin Tianji, you lowly commoner. My brother was just intimate with your sister, and you actually castrated him. Don't worry, I won't kill you now. I'll bring you back to my brother and let him deal with you. He'll make you beg for death, but you won't be able to beg for death. Capture him, cripple his limbs first, and then bring him back." The other 3 people obviously followed the lead of this youth. They released their demonic powers at the same time, and were about to pounce on Yin Tianji. "Stop!" A deep voice resounded, and the people who were about to attack slightly paused. At this moment, the youth called Yin Tianji suddenly jumped up, and the black light around his body instantly condensed in his right fist. He punched the earth element youth beside him, and knocked away the youth who was also a earth element youth like him. Then he pounced forward, and his body rolled on the ground. He evaded the attacks of the others, and rushed out of the encirclement. Not only was his movement very agile, but his fist that contained the earth element's demonic power had also condensed the demonic power to an extreme degree. In a situation where he didn't have the upper hand in terms of demonic power, he still managed to beat his opponent, who was a few levels higher than him, to the ground. Yin Tianji's body had barely rolled out of the encirclement when he leaped up. He displayed his physique that was far beyond that of an ordinary person, and once again ran forward. "Bastard! Catch him!" The earth element youth who had spoken earlier roared, and immediately chased after him with the others. Yin Tianji deliberately turned his head to look at Jidong when he passed by him. But Jidong didn't pay attention to him. He didn't even look at him and let him rush past him. However, when the 4 people who were chasing him rushed over, he wasn't so easy to talk to. He spread his arms, and said in a deep voice, "I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me?" The earth element youth angrily shouted, "Who do you think you are? Get lost." The scorching third fire rose in an instant, and the strong red flame, accompanied by the white sun crown, showed the brilliance of 3 crowns. Under the control of the yin and yang divine lock technique, Jidong only showed the third fire magic power. Even so, the scorching aura made the 4 people in front of him come to an abrupt halt. The earth element youth saw that Jidong was about the same age as Yun Tianji, so he didn't take him seriously at all. But when he saw the third fire sun crown showing the brilliance of 3 crowns on top of Jidong's head, his face suddenly changed. Not everyone had the ability to challenge higher ranks like Jidong. In the normal rules of the devil world, the gap in rank was the gap in strength. 2 crowns against 3 crowns, there was no chance at all. The strong third fire aura abruptly stopped the 4 people in front of him. Jidong's eyes were full of insufferably arrogant aura. Perhaps because he had been hiding his identity and escaping for a long time in the past few days, when he bloomed the third fire aura, the magic power released from his whole body was full of strong oppression. The 4 youths in front of him could clearly feel the explosive power contained in Jidong's magic power. Great Master Third Fire? The arrogant look of the earth element youth converged a little and said, "Great Master Third Fire, we are dealing with family affairs. Please don't interfere." Yin Tianji had originally rushed past Jidong, but perhaps because he felt the surging third fire magic power behind him, he couldn't help but stop and turn his head to look at Jidong, who was blooming with scarlet fire. He didn't say anything, but just gasped for breath. Obviously, his physical strength was close to the point of overdrawing, and he was only relying on an unyielding will to support himself until now. Jidong's answer to the 4 people in front of him was only one word: "Get lost." The earth element youth's eyes narrowed, and he said in a deep voice, "Friend, do you know who we are? Do you know the consequences of interfering?" Jidong didn't even raise his eyelids, and still said coldly, "Get lost. There are 4 of us." The earth element youth growled, and the other 3 also surrounded them. Yin Tianji, who was behind Jidong, didn't take this opportunity to leave. Instead, Hyoheim walked over and stood behind Jidong. The hatred in her eyes seemed to be even stronger. At this moment, Jidong suddenly moved. His figure flashed, and a fiery red light appeared. His movement was so fast that the 9th fire element youth on the left didn't have time to react, and a fiery red light had already bloomed in front of his chest. It was Burning Sun Devour. What was the result of being hit by Burning Sun Devour? Even the opponents whose cultivation was higher than Jidong's didn't feel good, not to mention the 9th fire element youth whose magic power was inferior to his. The fiery flame instantly covered his body, making him look like a ball of fire. In the midst of a deep roar, the 9th fire element youth seemed to have been hit by a body-fixing spell. His own 9th water element magic power couldn't block the attack at all. Jidong's attack was too violent, and the unique explosive power of the 3rd fire element was fully displayed by him. The Burning Sun Devour was blasted out, and Jidong didn't even look at the result of the attack. He turned his body and pressed both of his hands at the same time. The strong 3rd fire instantly turned into a wall of fire, blocking the attack of the other 3 people. His right foot, under the suppression of magic power, kicked the lower abdomen of the 3 people, and the 3 figures flew out. At this moment, Jidong calmly asked, "What can quantity decide?" He was as still as a mountain, but when he moved, he was like a raging fire. Jidong, who had once dared to fight against a heavenly warrior, wouldn't care about these people in front of him. The 9th water element youth, who was hit by Burning Sun Devour, slowly fell to the ground. He was lucky because Jidong didn't use the 3rd Origin Yang Sacred Fire. Otherwise, that attack would have turned him into ashes. Even so, he didn't feel good. The surface of his skin was charred, and he couldn't feel his hands, which he used to block the Burning Sun Devour. His 9th water element magic power could only barely protect his internal organs. Let's go. Power was the source of everything. The earth element youth flipped over and got up. He didn't dare to look at Ji-dong again, and he took his two companions, who were also kicked to the ground, and ran. Puff. A shattering sound came from beside Ji-dong. When Ji-dong turned his head to look, he couldn't help but frown. He saw Yun Tianji throw the ninth water element youth, who was being burned by burning sun devour, to the ground with a punch. Yun Tianji didn't care about the third fire burning his clothes and continued to attack the enemy, who was no longer able to fight back. After a few attacks, the ninth water element youth was no longer breathing. Chapter 98. Ji-dong stood to the side and calmly watched. He didn't stop Yun Tianji. The reason why he chose to intervene was because of the unyielding look in Yun Tianji's eyes when he was surrounded by the four youths. At this moment, this ninth water youth was brimming with a wild aura. Every punch he threw was filled with endless hatred. His eyes had even turned blood red. Yun Tianji seemed to not hear his voice as he continued to crazily beat the corpse. His fists were already very slow and not as powerful as before. His tattered clothes were soaked in sweat, but he didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Can whipping a corpse get rid of the pain in your heart? Although I don't know what happened to you, if you continue like this, I'm afraid that you will go crazy from hysteria before you can even get your revenge, Ji-dong said indifferently. Yun Tianji's fist that was about to fall again finally stopped in the air. His fist was already stained with blood. However, Ji-dong didn't think that he was dirty. He took a step forward and grabbed Yun Tianji's hand that was raised in the air. He pulled Yun Tianji's body up. At the same time, he pressed his left hand and a strong third flame erupted. The corpse that had already been beaten beyond recognition was thoroughly burned into charcoal. Ji-dong stuffed a level 2 ninth water crystal core into Yun Tianji's trembling hand. He pulled Yun Tianji to the side of the road and had him sit down. He didn't ask anything and only threw him a water pouch as well as the piece of cured meat that he had originally intended for her. Yun Tianji raised his head and glanced at Ji-dong. His eyes were still red, and his breathing was even more intense. He held the level 2 crystal core in one hand and absorbed the magical power within it. His other hand grabbed the water pouch and gulped down large mouthfuls of water. Ji-dong walked until he was 5 meters away from Yun Tianji and sat down. He closed his eyes and rested. He didn't say anything as he quietly waited. Level 2 magical power was consumed quickly and recovered just as quickly. It didn't take long before Yun Tianji's magical power was basically restored. The cured meat and water were also eaten. The red in his eyes also slowly faded. He looked at the charcoal on the road in a daze. The two of them just sat there. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Ji-dong opened his eyes. He slowly stood up and asked Yun Tianji, "Where's the nearest city? How far is it?" The confusion in Yun Tianji's eyes disappeared, and they became ice cold again. He said, "This is what you wanted to ask me." He finally spoke. His voice was very unique. It was slightly hoarse, but it was also filled with coldness. Ji-dong glanced at him and said, "Then what do you want me to ask?" Yun Tianji stood up and tossed the water bag in his hand to Ji-dong. He said, "If you are willing to take me to take revenge, then my life will be yours in the future." Ji-dong smiled faintly and said, "How do you know that I have the ability to avenge you? I don't think your enemies are just the 2 champions." Yun Tianji suddenly turned around and looked at Hyoheim. He said, "Although the 3 champions are strong, you're only level 32. Yet, you suppressed the 4 of them to the point that they couldn't fight back. If I still couldn't see that you were different, then I wouldn't be known as the Tianji candidate of Tianji City." Ji-dong looked at him with interest. He said, "Is your life very valuable? I don't think it is of any use to me." Yun Tianji said coldly, "Do you know what Tianji is?" Ji-dong shook his head. Yun Tianji said, "The so-called Tianji refers to prophecy. Only the people who live in Tianji City have such an ability. Every generation of Tianji City Lord has the title of Duke. In such a small city, this is almost unimaginable. The City Lord of Tianji City is different from other cities. It is not a hereditary title. Instead, It is a selection to choose the person who can inherit the Tianji ability. Ji Dong smiled faintly and said, "Then you are a candidate for the Tianji City Lord?" Yun Tianji nodded and said, "Yes, I am one of the candidates for the Tianji City Lord. If you help me avenge me, I will give up the chance to choose Tianji and go with you. No matter what you want me to do, I will agree." Ji Dong said, "I don't believe in prophecy. You have to convince me first." Yin Tianji looked at Ji Dong. His eyes suddenly became clear. Compared to the previous red eyes that were because of anger and resentment, he seemed to be a different person now. His eyes shone with a brilliance that was as bright as diamonds. The light in his eyes flickered continuously, as if it was changing colors. Ji Dong's willpower could definitely be considered firm. However, when he looked at Yin Tianji's eyes, he still felt dazzled. In the depths of Yin Tianji's eyes, he could even see a kind of vicissitude. After a long time, Yin Tianji's eyes dimmed. He looked at Ji Dong. There was a strange look in his eyes. He said, "I didn't see wrong. You are indeed extraordinary. I have been running in this direction because I have predicted that a benefactor who can help me avenge will appear in this direction. Now I can be sure that you are this benefactor, Mr. Fugitive." Ji Dong's heart trembled slightly. He said, "What did you see?" "I saw Aowen. I saw your future blooming with blood. I saw the aura of death. I also saw the terror of your future. Unfortunately, I am still not Tianji. I can't see clearly. The only thing I can be sure of is that you are a fugitive." Ji Dong carefully looked at Yin Tianji's eyes that had already returned to normal. He said, "Very good. You have already convinced me. You have made me curious about you. However, you still have to convince my two sovereigns. In this life, there are two sovereigns in charge of my life. One is morality, the other is conscience. They will control all my thoughts. If I break through their shackles, I will no longer be a person. Do you understand what I mean?" Yin Tianji's voice became cold again. He said, "If everyone had the shackles of these two sovereigns, then you wouldn't have met me today. I lived in a commoner's family in Tianji City, not far from here. When I was very young, my parents passed away one after another. It was my older sister, who was 5 years older than me, who brought me up. When I was young, my older sister did odd jobs for a noble family so that I could eat my fill. At that time, she was only 10 years old, but she was able to support our small but warm family. Everything she did was for me. Girls of the same age as her all had a pair of delicate hands. But my older sister's hands were very rough. Even in the cold winter, she still had to wash clothes for people, just so that I could eat my fill and wear my warm clothes. When I was 10 years old, my older sister used all the savings she had accumulated over the years to send me to a magician's academy to have my magical power tested. She knew that becoming a yin and yang magician was the only chance for me to change my fate. Can you imagine how much my older sister had sacrificed in order to save up that money? From the time I could remember, my older sister's clothes never had less than 5 patches. At this point, the coldness in Yun Tianji's eyes had completely disappeared. All that was left was a thick layer of mist. Ji Dong's emotions had also entered the story along with his hoarse voice. Ji Dong didn't interrupt him and listened quietly. "I know my sister's pain, but I also know her hopes. I didn't let my sister down. During the innate aptitude test, I was tested to have 90% yang water. After the interview, all the tuition fees were waived. All the expenses were covered by the academy. From then on, my sister's life became a little more comfortable. Finally, she didn't have to worry about me eating my fill and wearing my warm clothes anymore." A few years passed. In the process of studying at the academy, I only had one thought in my heart. That was to let my sister live a good life, a happy life. So, I trained hard day and night. When I was 13, I successfully condensed the yin-yang crown. While I was 15, I broke through to the double crown, becoming the youngest double crown magician in the history of our academy. Furthermore, I was chosen by the city lord of Tianji City as a candidate for a competition to determine whether I could become the next Tianji. The city lord opened the eye of Tianji for me, giving me the ability to see the future. He also told me that as long as I trained hard and raised my cultivation, the eye of Tianji would evolve on its own. I was the youngest of all the Tianji candidates, but I had the highest magic power. For this, the advanced academy that I had just entered not long ago gave me 10 gold coins. I still remember how happy my sister was when she received these 10 gold coins. Yin Tianji's eyes became much gentler, as if he was recalling the happy life he had with his sister in the past. Everything went according to my plan. I wanted to become stronger and richer. My sister had worked hard for me for so many years. It was time for me to repay her. I wanted to let my sister live the life of those noble ladies. But just as I was working hard, a few days ago, my dream was shattered. At this point, Yin Tianji's fist suddenly clenched tightly. His eyes were filled with hatred. Even Ji Dong couldn't help but be secretly shocked when he saw it. The person I killed just now was called Kai Gu. He even taught me a few basic skills. It was too difficult for commoner students like us to learn skills. I treated him like an older brother. But who knew that this guy with a human face and a beast's heart? Sister, it was me who harmed you. It was me who brought this guy home. Otherwise, you wouldn't have died. It was me who harmed you. At this point, Yin Tianji was already sobbing uncontrollably. His body was trembling, and a strong hatred seemed to surround his body with a layer of extremely cold air. His eyes, which had already returned to normal, had turned red again. I invited Kai Lu home as a guest. He saw my sister. Although she had to work hard every day to make a living, she was still extremely beautiful. At that time, Kai Lu didn't show anything, and I still treated him as a good friend. But who would have thought that 2 days later, while I was in class, he would bring the second son of the Tianji city's #1 noble family, Viscount Shi, to our house. That bastard was called Shi Shaolei, and he was in the same school as us. He was famous for being pompous. He actually raped my sister. When I returned home, I only saw my sister sitting on the bed with her clothes in a mess, gasping for air. No matter how much I asked, my sister refused to tell me what was going on. Only later did I understand that she was afraid that I would be hurt by those people. The next morning, when I finished my cultivation as usual, I saw that the table was still the same as before, with the breakfast that my sister had made for me. After eating breakfast, I was about to ask my sister about what happened the day before, but what I saw was my sister's corpse. She had already hanged herself and didn't even leave a single word. His lips trembled, and he had already bitten them until they bled, but he didn't even realize it. He said, "After this matter, I was greatly shocked and madly investigated what happened that day. It was a neighbor who told me that he had seen Shi Shaolei and Kai Lu go to my house, and I went to the academy to find Shi Shaolei, pretending to be Serval, but that bastard Shi Shaolei actually proudly told me that my sister's taste was not bad, and said that he would definitely take care of me in the future. I didn't kill him for such a bastard. Killing him would be too easy on him. How could his body, which had already been hollowed out by wine and women, be my opponent? I castrated this bastard, and even cut off the tendons of his hands and feet. You saw what happened after that. Shi Shaolei's brother, Shi Delay, brought people to kill me." Ji Dong said, "Weren't you chosen by Tianji City's Tianji Lord? Why didn't you ask him for help?" Yin Tianji laughed coldly and said, "Do you think it is so easy to see the Tianji? The Tianji has the ability to predict the future. As the chosen one, it is impossible for him not to predict everything that has happened to me. But he did not appear, which means that he has no intention of helping me. I can only rely on myself, and at worst, I will die. In any case, that bastard Shi Shaolei has already been crippled. No matter how good a water or wood element magician is, at most they can only restore the tendons of his hands and feet, but not his thing. He is destined to be a eunuch for the rest of his life." Ji Dong nodded at Yin Tianji and said, "Let's go." "Go where?" Yin Tianji looked at him stunned. Ji Dong said, "Tianji City, tell me, how do you want to take revenge? They all deserve to die." Ji Dong furrowed his brows. Yin Tianji snorted coldly and said, "Every one of the Shi clan deserves to be killed 100 times over. You can ask around in Tianji City. If there is any falsehood in my words, my sister's soul in heaven will not be at peace." He nodded slightly in agitation and said, "I believe you, but there are 3 things that I will not kill: women and children, servants who do not help the wicked, and children. Yin Tianji looked at Ji Dong and said, "You really want to help me take revenge?" Ji Dong said, "Not for you, but to get rid of evil. I can't care about all the injustice in the world, but if I see it, I have to care. In life, if there is no pursuit, then I can only be a walking corpse. I only want to take revenge." Chapter 99. Tianji City. This was not a very big city. In the Central Plains Empire, it could only be considered a third-class city. It could not be compared to the Central Plains City. Even Earth Spirit City was much bigger than it. However, Tianji City was extraordinarily prosperous. The reason was very simple. The successive generations of city lords here were all inherited by Tianji. Someone once said that if Tianji was willing, he could be bestowed the title of Marquis or Prime Minister in any country on the mainland. However, the successive generations of Tianji only stayed in a corner of Tianji City and inherited the position of City Lord. It was said that every generation of Tianji would make a prediction for the current emperor. This was the only time, and no one knew if it was true or not. However, there was one thing that was certain. No matter how high the nobles were or how powerful the generals were, no one dared to cause trouble in Tianji City. In Tianji City, other than the city lord's residence, the largest building was Viscount Shur's residence. This hereditary viscount was the nobleman with the highest rank in the city. In a Central Plains city, a viscount might not be much. However, in a small place like Tianji City, a viscount was a very important person. The entire residence occupied an area of 100 acres. It was surrounded by a 3-meter-tall yellow brick wall. At this moment, two people stood outside the wall. "It's here," Yin Tianji, who had changed into Ji Dong's clothes, said in a low voice. He lowered his head slightly so that no one could see his eyes that were filled with hatred. "Go in," Ji Dong said. "Now, don't you want to wait until night?" Yin Tianji was slightly stunned. Ji Dong frowned and said, "There's a time limit for revenge?" Yin Tianji said in a low voice, "Friend, I still don't know your name, but I must tell you. It is said that Viscount Shur is a 4 crowns powerhouse, and there are at least 4 devil masters who are at least 3 crowns in his mansion. That's all." Ji Dong looked at him. Yin Tianji was stunned and said, "That's not enough? There are only 2 of us." Ji Dong laughed self-deprecatingly as he thought to himself, "It looks like I've really underestimated the Demon Masters. A place like the Heavenly STEM Academy with a large number of high-level Demon Masters, I'm afraid there's only one such place in the entire continent." Ji Dong turned his wrist, and a few black second-rank, 9th water-type crystal nuclei appeared in his palm. He handed them over to Yun Tianji and said, "Protect yourself after you go in." Yun Tianji took the crystal core without hesitation and said, "If we succeed today, my life will be yours in the future." Ji Dong glanced at him and said indifferently, "Your life belongs to you." After saying this, he paused for a moment and firmly looked into Yun Tianji's eyes. He said, "It still belongs to your sister." As Yun Tianji's mind trembled, Ji Dong had already strode out. In just a few steps, he had already arrived in front of Viscount Shur's mansion. Viscount Shur was indeed a wealthy aristocrat. In front of the mansion, there were 4 sturdy guards standing guard. When they saw Ji Dong walking over, 2 of them immediately stepped forward to stop him. "What are you doing?" Ji Dong didn't stop. His right foot kicked out like lightning. 2 banging sounds were heard, and 2 sturdy guards, who weighed at least 60 kilograms, were kicked out and hit the door. At the same time, he replied, "I'm here to kill people." The door was forcibly smashed open, and the other 2 guards reacted. They quickly pulled out their swords and rushed towards Ji Dong. 2 clanging sounds were heard. Ji Dong raised his hands and directly grabbed the blades. He was wearing the Sun and Moon Double Brilliance glove, so how could he be afraid of these ordinary weapons? A crimson light flashed, and the 2 long swords instantly turned into molten iron. 2 more kicks were sent out, and the 2 guards were kicked out just like the previous 2. Although they weren't fatal, they still fell to the ground and couldn't get up. Simple, violent, and direct. This was Ji Dong's way of doing things. He didn't try to hide anything. He just directly entered the palace and directly entered the main gate of Viscount Shi's mansion. Yin Tianji quickly caught up and followed behind Jidong. When Jidong attacked, he could clearly feel a piercingly cold aura from Jidong's body. It wasn't a simple murderous aura, but a kind of domineering aura that made people need to look up to and fear. Although Jidong looked like a young man, at this moment, in Yin Tianji's eyes, Jidong was comparable to the strongest person in the world. After entering the main gate, he was faced with a huge screen wall. It was 3 feet high and 15 feet wide, and the images of the Earth Divine Beast Guy and the Earth Divine Beast Yanni were carved on it. He took a step forward, and the crimson flame condensed in his right fist. It burst, shattered, and rumbled. A big hole had been blasted in the middle of the screen wall. It was the scorching sun devour. Jidong's body stepped through the dust, as if he didn't know how to turn in the first place. He strode inside. "Who is it? How dare you cause trouble in Viscount Shi's mansion?" The huge movement had already attracted the attention of the people in Viscount Shi's mansion. A dozen strong men surrounded 2 middle-aged men in tight clothes, who looked like guards, and greeted them. Jidong stopped, and his eyes shone with power. He said, "Tell Viscount Shi Daily Eye, and Shi Xiaolei to come out and die." The 2 guards were furious. The one on the left waved his hand and said, "Arrest them." The dozen strong men immediately rushed forward, and each of them held a wooden stick in their hands. They looked like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey, and they surrounded Jidong and Yin Tianji. A blinding red light shone from the top of Jidong's head, and the symbol of Grandmaster Bing, who was 3 crowns and Sun Crown, appeared. He lightly waved his fingers, and a dozen sparks shot out. Under the control of his nimble fingers, each spark was aimed at a strong man. For magicians, these sparks were nothing, but to deal with these ordinary people, it was more than enough. Like a huge firecracker exploding, the roars exploded in front of the strong men, and miserable screams rang out. These people were immediately blown into pieces of flesh and blood. The explosive power of Bing Hua was not something that ordinary people could contend with. Jidong didn't want to kill indiscriminately, so he only used ordinary Bing Hua. But even so, the magic power of the 3 crowns, coupled with the increase of the sun and moon double radiance, as well as his own magic power that was far superior to ordinary magicians, still made these strong men suffer a lot. The arms that were blown off were the lightest, and those who reacted a little slower were directly hit in the chest by the sparks, and immediately fainted from the explosion. More than a dozen people fell like wheat under the light wave of Jidong's fingers. Looking at the sun crown on top of Jidong's head, the faces of the 2 guards immediately changed. Even in the Heavenly STEM Academy, 3 crowns was already enough to graduate, and only abnormal places like the Yin-Yang Academy had 3 crowns. But for ordinary magicians, the bottleneck of 3 crowns was a barrier that most people could not break through in their lifetime. In a hurry, the 2 guards released their magic power at the same time. One was of the earth element, and the other was of the metal element. However, there were only 2 crowns on top of their heads. With the tip of his foot touching the ground, Jidong's entire body had already skimmed over the ground. His body slid on the ground, leaving a series of afterimages. His speed was so fast that he appeared in front of the 2 guards in an instant. Jidong's speed was really too fast, and the 2 guards only saw a blur in front of their eyes. Before they could react, they felt a tight grip on their necks, and in the next moment, their bodies had already left the ground. Those who help the evildoer shall be killed. Boom! 2 balls of third fire simultaneously exploded from Jidong's hands, and the 2 guards that he had grabbed by the necks and held high in the air instantly turned into 2 balls of fire. He could spare ordinary people who were not magicians, but he would not let these magicians go. They used their extraordinary strength to help the evildoer bully ordinary people. Just the fact that they were willing to be Viscount Shi's accomplices meant that they were courting death. Although Jidong was overbearing, he was not a careless person. After following Yin Tianji into Tianji City, he had already made many inquiries. What Viscount Shi had done was exactly as Yin Tianji had said, and was even more outrageous. Those who were asked were either so afraid that they did not dare to say a word, or so hateful that they wanted to eat their flesh. Especially towards those magicians who helped the evildoer, they were even more resentful. It was also because of the existence of these magicians that the majority of the people did not dare to speak up. With a fling of his hands, the two fireball-shaped corpses were directly thrown into the depths of the courtyard. Two crystal crowns with a faint golden edge floated down. Although Ji Dong still did not know what the crystal crowns of the magicians of the five-element continent were used for, he still waved his hand and kept them, and continued forward. Yun Tianji, who was following behind Ji Dong, was a little stunned. Devil skill? What kind of devil skill was this? It was actually so overbearing. Even if there was a difference between 2 crowns and 3 crowns, it should not be a difference of being killed in an instant. After 3 months of practice in the Vermilion Bird Cave, Ji Dong finally practiced his Scorching Sun Devour and Dark Moon Flame to more than 1,000 times. The skill he used was the newly comprehended Flame Monarch's life skill, Bright Sun Hunt. This seemed to be simple, but a quick grab was not so simple. The moment Ji Dong's body rushed out, his whole body was wrapped in a strong devil power. It was extremely difficult to avoid or resist this grab. It should be known that when Ji Dong used Bright Sun Hunt before, he was only using the third fire. This was the first time he used it in actual combat. Unfortunately, the opponent was a little weak, and he did not feel the true essence of Bright Sun Hunt. In the past few months, in addition to his own practice, Ji Dong had been thinking about the mutual promotion and restraint of the 5 elements. When he was surrounded by Huang Liming and his people, although he successfully escaped, the suppression of the 5 elements at that time also gave him a great shock, and also made him clearly realize that although he had dual attributes and ultimate dual fires, this did not mean everything. On this continent, full of the magic of the 5 elements, the complementarity and restraint of the 5 elements themselves was the way to release the strongest devil skill. Unfortunately, although he realized this, he had already left the Heavenly STEM Academy. Everything could only rely on himself to explore, and he could not ask the teacher to learn. At this time, the Viscount's mansion was already in chaos. Those ordinary servants saw Ji Dong's devil-like means and were scared to run away. The whole front yard was in chaos. Ji Dong did not stop and continued to stride forward, passing through the front yard, and entered the second main courtyard. There is a certain reason why Shi Ziju was able to dominate Tianji City. In this short period of time, there were already 40 to 50 people gathered in the main courtyard. The 5 or 6 guards standing in front were all devil masters with Yin-Yang crown, and 2 of them had even reached the level of 3 crowns. Seeing Ji Dong and Yun Tianji step into the main courtyard, they immediately surrounded the 2, and Ji Dong and Yun Tianji in the center. Shi Dalai was in this group of people, and he had changed into a clean set of clothes. He looked at the 2 with a sinister face, and said to the 2 3 crowns devil masters, 2 uncles, it's them. The one with the water element is Yun Tianji. He was the one who crippled second brother, and the other is his accomplice. Take them down, I will make them beg for death. Including Shi Dalai, the other side had a total of 2 3 crowns devil masters, plus 5 2 crowns devil masters. It was already a large force, and, judging from the attributes of these people, they could already gather all 5 elements. Just as he thought of this, the leading 3 crowns devil master had already shouted and commanded everyone to release their respective devil power. In an instant, the light of the 5 elements of the Yang attribute blossomed, and the whole main courtyard suddenly appeared with the suppression of the 5 elements that Ji Dong had seen before. Dozens of strong men retreated one after another. For ordinary people, in the face of the suppression of the 5 elements, they did not have the slightest chance to fight back. The corner of Ji Dong's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile, and he said, "You want to suppress me with just you?" The intense Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire instantly transformed, and the red flames around his body instantly turned golden. The Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire's violent and overbearing pure yang qi instantly bloomed, and a strong yang qi soared into the sky. Behind Ji Dong, a bright golden flame monarch phantom suddenly appeared. Yun Tianji, who was originally heavy because of the suppression of the five elements, clearly felt that under the influence of the aura on Jidong's body, his own water element devil power seemed to evaporate, and his whole body felt powerless. At the same time, he also clearly felt that the air in the whole main courtyard seemed to break, and the light of the five elements in the air was instantly broken by the rising yang aura. The five devil masters that formed the suppression of the five elements almost simultaneously trembled, and their eyes revealed a look of shock. If he wanted to use the five elements to suppress Jidong, at the very least, the five demon masters who had formed the five elements formation would need to have more demonic power than him. How could the ultimate fire and the proud and of two sovereigns be so easily suppressed? At this moment, Jidong's body moved, and everyone only felt that the air instantly distorted, as if a golden meteor had shot out. The next moment, Jidong's body had already arrived in front of a three-crowned devil master of the gung metal attribute. His right hand opened wide, and his entire palm swelled up to twice his size, and the bright golden flame directly grabbed at the opponent's neck. Jidong's speed was really too fast, but his opponent was also not comparable to the two-crowned devil masters in the front courtyard. Although the devil master of the gung metal attribute had reached level 34 because the suppression of the five elements was broken and the devil power in his body was surging, he still reacted in the first moment. Both of his fists shot out, and the dazzling white devil power condensed in the air into a sharp cone that was more than a meter long and directly pierced towards Hyoheim's chest, attacking the enemy's vital point. Chapter 100. Just as Jidong rushed over like a meteor, the three-crowned gung metal element demon master made the most correct choice. Clearly, his actual combat experience was quite rich. Although Jidong's speed was fast, he was not faster than the other party. However, the Bright Sun Hunt was the fourth skill that Jidong had inherited from the Flame Monarch other than the Sure Kill skill, the Brilliant Sun All. How could it be so easy to block? Seeing that the metal all condensed from white magic stabbed into Jidong's chest. Suddenly, the gung metal element demon master was horrified to find that the magic he had sent out seemed to have no resistance at all. Jidong's body twisted strangely, and golden flames that he had never seen before almost instantly covered the metal all he had sent out. In the eyes of others, the metal all had indeed stabbed into Jidong's chest, but the moment it came into contact with Jidong's body, it began to melt. When Jidong's hand grabbed the three-crowned demon master's neck, the metal all had already disappeared. The three-crowned gung metal element demon master's rather robust body was raised high above his head. At the same time, at least three demon master's attacks were already close to Jidong's body. An extremely cold and angry snort sounded, and in the midst of a loud bang, the gung metal element demon master in Jidong's hand had already turned into a ball of golden flames, just in time to meet the attack of a two-crowned demon master. That corpse was like a huge golden fireball, forcibly colliding with it. It was only to look at it all. How could a two-crown level of cultivation be able to resist the Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire? At the same time, Jidong did not dodge. He suddenly came to his senses, ignoring the attack of another two-crowned demon master from the side. He stepped forward, rushed forward, and swung his fist. The scorching sun devourer seemed to have instantly sucked out the Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire from his body, and an extremely fierce punch directly bombarded the opponent. If one were to describe the feeling that Jidong gave off right now, it could only be described with one word: wild. Jidong's movements were simply too fast. Yin Tianji, who had just rushed over from his previous position, couldn't help him. However, in Yin Tianji's eyes, Jidong's entire body was blooming with golden flames, and the golden phantom of a humanoid king behind him was so bright that he didn't need help at all. The other Triple Crown magician was of the Earth element. In the Middle Earth Empire, Earth element magicians could be found everywhere. This Triple Crown magician was obviously filled with fear towards Jidong. His body was covered with a layer of rock armor that was half a foot thick. It was obviously a special devil technique. Because of this, he was a step too late when he made his move. Boom! The scorching sun devour collided with the opponent's rock-armored fist. At the same time, the attack of the Triple Crown Magician also landed on Jidong's body. As soon as the black mana landed on Jidong's body, it disappeared instantly. Jidong's body didn't even budge in the slightest. As for the three-crowned, Earth-type Magus, he felt an unparalleled, explosive power blossoming in front of him. Amidst the loud boom, the rock armor on his fist exploded. At the same time, intense golden flames instantly engulfed his entire body. The extreme heat brought by the extreme yang fire caused him to groan in pain. However, his body was pulled by a strange suction force, and he couldn't retreat at all. Can't rocks burn? The cold smile on Jidong's face was a stark contrast to his ruthless and overbearing attack. His shoulder had already smashed heavily into his opponent's body. This was the first person he'd been able to force him to use his devil technique since he'd arrived at Viscount Shi's mansion. The Xingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire, Scorching Sun Devour, and Scorching Sun Collapse superimposed on each other. The golden flames scattered in all directions, blocking the other Double Crown Magicians. The Triple Crown Magician who'd attacked Jidong earlier was even touched by the Xingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire. He screamed and rolled on the ground. With his Double Crown level 9th Water Devil technique, how could he possibly fight against Jidong's extreme Yang Fire? In an instant, 2 were dead and 2 were seriously injured. The 2 who died were the strongest Triple Crown Magicians among the opponents. More than half of the 7 magicians were gone. How domineering was this? Devil, you're a devil. Sure, Daily Eye's voice had become as sharp as a woman's. He fell back with a pale face while shouting in anger. At this time, no one dared to rush forward. The servants, strong men, and maids of the Viscount's mansion all fled. In addition to Sure Daily Eye, there were still 2 Double Crown Magicians. However, at this time, they didn't even seem to have the strength to escape. 2 simple golden fireballs found them, and 2 more flaming people appeared in the main courtyard. Not to mention those who were of a lower level than Jidong. Even opponents of the same level as her would find it difficult to resist the ultimate dual fire. We're your father and brother. In a flash, the 4th person Ming Yonglai grabbed was Sure Daily Eye. However, this time, Jidong didn't let the flames spread to his body. He just grabbed him out of thin air. Under the suppression of the Xingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire, Sure Daily Eye couldn't use any devil technique at all. Woo! Sure Daily Eye's face had turned from pale to purple as he was choked by Jidong. He couldn't speak at all. Throwing him to the ground, Jidong said coldly, "Tell me, where are Viscount Shi and Sure Xiaolei? If you tell me, I won't kill you." I'll tell you. Sure Daily Eye's backbone was even less than Jidong had imagined. He didn't struggle at all and said, "Father took my brother to see a doctor. They should be back soon." "See a doctor? Can broken limbs be reattached?" Jidong asked doubtfully. Sure Daily Eye said, "My brother's lower body can't do it, but his hand and leg tendons should be fine. Father took him to a famous wood element healer in the city. As long as he has money, the healer will treat him." Jidong nodded. He looked at Yun Tianji and said, "Then we'll wait here. They'll come back sooner or later. I'll leave him to you." As he spoke, Jidong raised his foot and sent Sure Daily Eye to Yun Tianji. Sure Daily Eye immediately wailed. "You said you wouldn't kill me." Jidong said indifferently, "I only said that I won't kill you. As for whether he will kill you or not, you'll have to ask him." As he spoke, Jidong walked to the side and sat down cross-legged as if there was no one else around. He withdrew his Bingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire and used his cultivation to recover the mana he had used earlier. Crystal cores were always limited, so he had to save as much as possible. When Sure Daily Eye saw Yun Tianji's blood-red eyes, he knew that he had been fooled. His scream seemed to be able to spread throughout the entire Tianji city. When Jidong finished his cultivation and opened his eyes, he couldn't help but frown. The blood-red color in Yun Tianji's eyes had already faded away. His gaze had regained its clarity and depth. In front of him, Sure, Dalei didn't look like a person anymore. Yun Tianji didn't kill him and even used his ninth water mana to heal his wounds. However, Sure Dalei's limbs had already been separated from his body. Just as Yin Tianji had said, death was never the most terrifying thing. Seeing that Ji Dong had awakened from his cultivation, Yin Tianji nodded to him and said, "Thank you. I've already thought it through. No matter how many people I kill, my sister won't be able to come back. Viscount Sure is the main culprit. Kill him and break Sure Xiaolei's limbs. Then I'll have my revenge." Ji Dong nodded to him and said, "All right." Yin Tianji said indifferently, "You're a strange triple-crowned devil master. This is the first time I've seen a devil skill used like this. It's also the first time I've seen you emit this kind of golden flame. Those people call you a devil, but I don't think that's right. They should call you a devil king. The king's shadow that appeared behind you doesn't seem to belong to any devil system. It's a devil king that specializes in devouring beasts." Devil King. Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, "I like this title. If you want, you can call me that in the future." He was the heir of the Flame Tyrant and the Dark Flame Devil King. The Devil King could completely represent the inheritance of the two sovereigns, as well as the pride that belonged to a king. Yun Tianji's eyes seemed to become even more profound. He said, "It would be great if there were more Devil Kings like you in this world." Ji Dong said, "Are you very dissatisfied with this world? The five-element continent is in a peaceful era with almost no wars. You can't hate the entire world because of what happened to you." Yin Tianji sneered. "Is it definitely a prosperous era without wars? Without the baptism of wars, the exploitation of the nobles is even more vicious than the baptism of wars. What you see is only the surface. How much of the dark side of society can you see? Viscount Sure is but a drop in the ocean among the nobles. He's just a small viscount. Have you seen the situation in the fiefs of the great nobles? In some places, when a woman marries, her virginity must be given to the nobles. It's no different from being a slave." Ji Dong frowned and said, "Don't the governments care?" "Care? How?" Yin Tianji smiled and said, "The nobles are the ones who support the 5 great empires of the continent. The nobles are the foundation of every empire. Unless you can overthrow all the 5 great empires, the nobles are unshakable. The interests of the nobles are intertwined. Pulling one strand can affect the whole situation." Ji Dong said, "You seem to understand the situation of the continent very well." Yin Tianji's eyes dimmed a bit as he said, "This is a compulsory course for every candidate of the Prophecy Academy. I have to learn about this for 2 days every week. It's been a few years, so how could I not understand? The teachers who taught us all showed us the darkest things in this society. I'll just give you one statistic, and you'll understand the extent of the current aristocratic class. Every year, the number of civilians who die from riots in the 5 great empires adds up to more than 1 million. Civilians are very easily satisfied. Even if they only have food to eat, even if they're not forced to the extreme, will they riot?" Looking at the sparkle in Yin Tianji's eyes, Ji Dong said, "If you hope to persuade me to rebel, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I don't have the ambition to unify the world and change it. At most, I just want to be a demon king who can take revenge. I like to enjoy life and not be bound." A trace of disappointment flashed in Yun Tianji's eyes. Although he looked to be about the same age as Ji Dong, at this moment, he didn't look like a teenager at all. It's not bad to take revenge. Since you only want to be a demon king, then be a great demon king. Although it's impossible to kill all the evildoers in the world, there will always be one less if you kill one. When your name can shake the world, there will at least be fewer nobles who dare to do evil." Ji Dong laughed and said, "Do you think I have that kind of ability? I'm only a 3-crown magician." Yin Tianji said very seriously, "I think you can. You definitely can. As long as I'm still alive, I will always be by your side to witness everything." At this moment, suddenly, Ji Dong's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked towards the gate that connected the front courtyard and the main courtyard. Yin Tianji suddenly turned around and saw a group of more than 20 people walking in from outside. "Who dares to cause trouble in my mansion?" The person in the lead looked to be in his 40s. He wasn't very tall, but he was extremely strong. He had broad shoulders and a dignified appearance. His luxurious clothes set off a threatening aura of nobility. However, at this moment, his face was full of anger. Without a doubt, this person was Viscount Sure. Behind him were two middle-aged men with dignified auras. Behind them were the servants of the Viscount's mansion. 4 of them were carrying a stretcher with a person lying on it. The person's appearance couldn't be seen clearly. Among these people, apart from Viscount Sure, the person who attracted Ji-dong's attention the most was a young man in green who was walking beside Viscount Sure. This person looked to be in his 20s. When everyone entered the courtyard and saw the blood and corpses on the ground, their expressions changed greatly. Only this person still had an indifferent expression on his face. It was as if all of this had nothing to do with him. The people who were killed by Ji-dong had already turned into ashes. Even those who were touched by the third Wu, primordial yang, sacred fire, were no exception. When Viscount Sure saw his eldest son, Sure Dalei, who was lying on the ground with only one breath left, his eyes immediately turned red. He roared in anger, "Bastard!" Then, he rushed towards Yun Tianji. The 2 middle-aged men behind him also moved together with Viscount Sure. Both of them seemed to have a very gloomy aura. They released their yang crown almost at the same time as Viscount Sure. Viscount Sure was of the earth element, while the 2 middle-aged men were of the 3rd fire element. They were also of the 3 crowns. One of them was at level 36, while the other was at level 38. Together with Viscount Sure, the earth element grandmaster who had 4 crowns, the 3 of them rushed out at the same time. Their auras were extremely shocking. Ji-dong's figure flashed, and he was already in front of Yun Tianji. He said, "Step back," facing 3 enemies, 1 with 4 crowns and 2 with 3 crowns. He didn't show the slightest bit of fear. The golden ultimate yang flame rose again. However, when the calm young man saw the golden flame, a look of surprise appeared on his face. He frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. Just as Ji-dong Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire rose, the 2 middle-aged men behind Sure Ziju's Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire suddenly dimmed by more than half. The Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire's attribute suppression appeared. Chapter 101. Sure Dalei was lying on the ground with his limbs cut off. Both sides didn't need to do much. Sure Viscount Zhu and his 2 subordinates rushed forward in a frenzy. Ji-dong didn't even look at the 2 middle-aged fire elemental magicians. Although they were both yang flames, their magic power was slightly higher than Ji-dong's, but they couldn't pose any threat to him. In front of the Bing-Wu primordial fire, their magic power couldn't penetrate the Ji-dong's inner armor and cause any damage to him. It was just like when the double-crown magician attacked Ji-dong. His magic power was transformed by the Bing-Wu primordial fire, and the impact of the magic power was easily blocked by Ji-dong's inner armor. Step forward, attack, scorching sun devour. Golden flames instantly condensed, and it was the move that Ji-dong was most familiar with. Facing the unknown golden flames, even though Sure Viscount Zhu was an earth elemental magician, his magic power was still slightly suppressed by the yang qi of the Bing-Wu primordial fire. He also blasted out a circle, but yellow magic power also condensed on his fist. The strength of a 4-crown magician was revealed at this moment, and the air became much denser. When a yellow light condensed on Sure Viscount Zhu's fist, his entire fist was wrapped in a layer of yellow crystals. Behind him, the earth divine beast in the form of a silver bird suddenly appeared. The surging magic power caused a series of vibrations in the air, and even the ground was dyed with a layer of yellow luster. People who could dominate an area were indeed extraordinary. Ji-dong's eyes narrowed, and he once again increased his magic power a little at the instant when the scorching sun devour was about to collide with his opponent. He still chose to face it head-on. Fire elemental magic skills focused on momentum, and only by suppressing the opponent with momentum would they be able to make them unable to fight back. This was also an important reason why opponents of a higher level than him would be completely suppressed before they could even use any magic skills. The two fists collided, and the glaring yang fire instantly erupted. In the violent collision, the two fists stuck together. Jidong's body shook violently, and his face was flushed with blood. However, he didn't take half a step back and forcibly withstood Sir Viscount Ju's magic power that was more than level 40. The magic power of a four-crown magician could draw the power of heaven and earth for their own use, rather than borrowing it. In terms of power, it was far more powerful than a three-crown magician. However, in front of Jidong, the amount of magic Sir Viscount Ju could borrow was extremely limited. The air seemed to be burning by the Bingwu primordial fire, and all elements were forcibly blocked. In the moment before the two collided, Sir Viscount Ju magic power weakened. In addition, Jidong was wearing the twin radiant sun and moon gloves on his right hand, and his strong body that had been soaked in dragon blood, as well as the defensive power of the vermilion bird armor. Although he was still at a disadvantage in terms of magic power in this head-on collision, Jidong didn't retreat at all. The Bingwu primordial fire was extremely tyrannical. When the two fists stuck together, the topaz mana on Sir Viscount Ju's fist melted like ice and snow, and the terrifying heat caused him to scream in pain. Although he tried his best to channel his own mana into his fist, the melting of the topaz showed no signs of weakening. Since he couldn't suppress his opponent with his mana, Jidong's goal was very simple. He wanted to use his ultimate fire to suppress his opponent in terms of attributes. There was nothing that couldn't be burned. Although the earth element could restrain the fire element, how could it restrain the yang fire? As long as Sir Viscount Ju's body was touched by the Bingwu primordial fire, even if his mana was slightly stronger, Jidong was completely confident that he could restrain it. At this moment, something that Jidong didn't expect happened. The two-level, 30 fire element mages didn't attack him. Sir Viscount Ju's movements were very fast. When his fists collided with Jidong's, the two mages behind him finally caught up. They raised their right hands at the same time, and powerful Bingwu fire shot out. However, their target wasn't Jidong, but Sir Viscount Ju's back. Puff, puff, puff. When the two middle-aged men's palms landed on Sir Viscount's back, Sir Viscount's earth element energy, which had been mostly melted, suddenly flared up, and the yellow crystal color had turned into a red crystal color. Jidong felt a tremendous and intense vibration coming from Sir Viscount's fist, and his body was immediately sent flying away like a cannonball. No one expected such a sudden change. Yin Tianji's eyes narrowed, and he immediately chased after Hyoheim's body that was blasted away. The young man who came back with Sir Viscount Ju had a look of surprise in his eyes again, and he muttered to himself, "Fire and earth element combination skill." Sir Viscount Ju's face revealed a trace of a sinister smile, and he said, "That's right, it's the fire and earth element combination skill. Die." As he said that, his entire body seemed to have become a bit taller, and the shadow of the earth divine beast in the sky behind him became a bit more solid. His entire body was covered in a layer of red and yellow light. He clasped his hands together, and the red light quickly condensed. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a huge crystal ball. The terrifying energy caused the surrounding air to violently distort. Sir Viscount Ju's eyes shone brightly, and he roared, "Ultimate skill, earth-splitting cannon." Boom! The huge crystal ball suddenly blossomed with a violently distorted light, and a huge energy wave seemed to have turned the sky red. The crystal ball was like a cannonball as it went straight for Jidong, who was blasted away, and Yun Tianji, who was chasing after him. Fire begets earth. The two fire element magicians' role was to fuse their own mana with Sir Viscount Ju's and produce the effect of fire begetting earth. This allowed Sir Viscount Ju to temporarily possess powerful mana and skills that far exceeded his own strength. This was also an important reason why the two people beside Sir Viscount Ju were both fire element magicians. Under the amplification of the two fire element magicians, and through the principle of fire begetting earth, Sure, Viscount Ju's explosive attack power was not inferior to that of a five-crown magician. This was the strength of a combination skill. However, even if it was a double-element combination skill, it wasn't that easy to succeed. Seeing that his eldest son was half dead, Sure Ziju used his trump card right from the start. Jidong's body had already disappeared behind the wall that connected the main courtyard and the backyard. Previously, Sure Viscount Ju's increased mana had blasted his body into the wall, and there was dust and mud everywhere. However, Sure Viscount Ju could feel his presence, and this Sure Kill skill, the Fire-Earth Splitting Cannon, was chasing after him. If they were really hit, whether it was Jidong or Yun Tianji, they would definitely die without a complete corpse. However, at the same time that Sure Viscount Ju exploded his double-element combination skill, Jidong's low voice instantly became excited behind the hole in the wall, and he said, "Phoenix dancing sun all." A loud and clear phoenix cry resounded through the world, and all the dust disappeared in an instant, as if it had completely evaporated. A huge golden-red awl in the shape of a phoenix rushed out from behind the hole in the wall, and with a loud phoenix cry, it met Sure Viscount Ju's attack head-on. Although Jidong was blasted away and also suffered a great shock, he was not an ordinary magician after all. The mana weapon in his hands, the twin brilliance of the sun and moon, helped him resist a part of the attack. At the same time, the vermilion bird armor in his body displayed a tyrannical defensive ability, and most of the mana that wanted to invade Jidong's body was dissolved. Coupled with his physique that had been soaked in dragon blood, it looked like he had been blasted away, but in reality, he did not suffer serious injuries. When the cyan-clothed man shouted the double-element combination skill, Jidong also had the same thought. However, he had already made the fastest reaction in the shortest time possible, and this was also the only reaction that could face Sure Viscount Ju's next attack. Amidst the spell that was filled with chaos, the vermilion bird transformation instantly appeared. When Yun Tianji rushed through the dust, he saw the white wings on Jidong's back spread out. At the same time, a bright golden-red light instantly burst out from the vermilion bird bracelet on Jidong's right wrist. The Eclipse Phoenix Hua flew out, and the surging Binggu Primordial Yang's sacred fire instantly fused with Jidong, and only then did he unleash that attack. Dancing Phoenix Sun All. This was a skill that Envy and Hua had cultivated together in the Vermilion Bird Cave. After he had been chased by Huang Liming, Jidong had realized that his strength was insufficient. The most powerful skill he could use was undoubtedly the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill, Forbidden 100,000 Brilliant Sun All. However, because he did not have enough mana, he needed a long time to charge up for this attack. It did not matter if he used it as a bet, but when he was truly facing an enemy on the battlefield, how could his opponent give him the time to charge up? Under the Vermilion Bird's guidance, Jidong and Hua worked together to practice this attack. And so, he practiced this attack. Originally, Jidong had only wanted to use this to strengthen his understanding of the ultimate skill, Brilliant Sun All. However, the Vermilion Bird had asked Hua to leave with him. At this moment, in the midst of danger, Hua could feel the danger that Jidong was in and woke up on its own. The human and Phoenix's minds were connected, and they launched this attack. Jidong's own mana was insufficient, but under the circumstances of the Vermilion Bird transformation, he could also burst forth with the strength of a quadruple crown. In addition to Hua's level 4 mana, the two superimposed, and he had enough mana to use the Brilliant Sun All. In the instant that the Flame Monarch's gigantic figure merged with Jidong, Hua directly drilled into it and attached itself to Jidong's body. It fused its own mana with Jidong's. They were both Xingwu Primordial Yang's sacred fire, and under the superimposed amplification, it completely erased the time that Jidong needed to charge up for using the Brilliant Sun All. Moreover, after the Brilliant Sun All was launched, other than the Flame Monarch's proud aura, there was also the aura of the Fire Phoenix and the Vermilion Bird. Fire-Earth Shattering Cannon versus Phoenix Dance's Brilliant Sun All. Without a doubt, Sure Viscount's Fire and Earth dual combination skill was quite powerful. However, He was facing the full power of Jidong, who had inherited the Flame Monarch's profound Singwu primordial yang sacred fire and the daughter of the Vermilion Bird, the Eclipse Phoenix. The fusion of fire and earth was only an ordinary combination of fire and earth. Even the level 59 Earth-type Devil Master, the second seat of Yin Yang Hall, Ji Yifeng, was unable to withstand the full defense of the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill. How could it be so easily blocked? The instant that the golden-red giant all collided with the crimson crystal, the entire Sure Viscount's mansion was instantly engulfed in an unprecedentedly intense flame. The golden-red flames spread out in a radioactive manner, turning into a dazzling ring of light that spread out. Everything that came into contact with the golden-red light started burning violently. The ring of light spread out for more than 200 meters in diameter before gradually fading away. Meanwhile, most of Sure Viscount's mansion was enveloped by this layer of golden-red light. Even Yun Tianji, who was only facing a trace of the shockwave, had to use all his strength to activate his 9th water element devil power to barely resist the golden-red light's invasion. However, the Grade 2 crystal in his hand had completely shattered due to the depletion of his devil power. His own devil power was also almost depleted, and his body was char-black. The huge crimson crystal that was condensed from fire and earth devil power had already quietly disappeared. Just like the crystal, Sure Viscount and his 2 accomplices had completely disappeared into thin air. Not even ashes were left behind. Not only that, the servants who had returned with Sure Viscount, the half-dead Sure Daily Eye on the ground, and the half-dead Sure Xiaolei on the stretcher were all tainted by the golden-red light. They screamed in pain as they burned violently. It seemed like they were no longer alive. One strike, just one strike had solved all the problems. The only person who had returned with Sure Viscount Ju was the green-clothed young man. At this moment, his body was flickering with a layer of jade-like green radiance. The dense radiance enveloped his entire body, preventing the golden-red flames from invading his body. Jidong's figure appeared. His face was somewhat pale. He crossed the ruins and returned to the main courtyard, which was surrounded by everyone. As soon as he stepped in, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest visibly heaved up and down violently. After all, the fire and earth dual combination technique was extremely powerful. In addition to the previous collision, Jidong's own use of the brilliant sun all had caused his internal organs to be injured. However, even as he spat out blood, Jidong's gaze did not change in the slightest. With an ice-cold arrogance, he stared at the youth whose body was flickering with green light. In his heart, the battle was not over yet. This youth whose body was flickering with green light could be even more dangerous than Sure Viscount. At this moment, even though Jidong's body was swaying and the Vermilion Bird inner armor had already disappeared due to the consumption of the brilliant sun all, his devil power had not been completely exhausted. After all, with Little Flame's help, the burden on his body was much lighter. A ray of green light rose from the youth's body. Even with Jidong's reaction speed, he was somewhat unprepared. With a flash of green light, the green light had already appeared on his body. Just as Jidong was about to burst forth with his extreme flames to resist, he discovered that the green light did not have a trace of hostility. A cool aura permeated his body, and the pain in his internal organs immediately lessened. Even the disorder of the yin-yang vortex had calmed down due to the large amount of consumption. Chapter 102. What's going on? Jidong was slightly taken aback, but the hostility in his eyes did not disappear. The magic skill that the man in green used was clearly a wood element healing magic skill, and the effect was accompanied by a green light as it gradually entered his body. Jidong only felt a surge of vitality. His injuries that were not very serious healed without any medicine, and his body regained its magic. Wood begets fire, and under the effect of the wood element healing magic, his magic also recovered a bit. Aren't you going to avenge Viscount Sure? Jidong said in a low voice. The man in green smiled and said very naturally, "Why should I avenge him? Who does he think he is?" Jidong was really taken aback this time. Before he could speak, the man in green already continued. Do you think I must be his subordinate just because I came here with him? There's something wrong with you knowing me. I'm just a doctor, and he invited me to treat his son. He looked at the stretcher that had already turned into a ball of golden-red flames and shrugged. He said very unjustly, "Looks like there's no need for that now." Ji-dong said coldly, "Even if you're a doctor who takes the side of the evildoer." The man in black did not get angry. He smiled and said, "I'm just a doctor. I'll treat whoever can afford it. I've never said that I'm a good person. Others call me a money grubber." A cry of surprise came from behind Ji-dong. "You're that money grubber doctor?" Yin Tianji walked out from behind Ji-dong and stood beside him. He looked at the man in green with shock in his eyes. The man in green smiled self-deprecatingly. "Looks like I'm a bit famous." He pointed at the flames that were burning more and more fiercely. "This doesn't seem like a good place to talk. How about we go somewhere else?" Yin Tianji and Hyoheim nodded and whispered in his ear, "This money grubber doctor is very famous in Horizon City. He's known as medicine cures fatal diseases, but money helps those who are fated. He's famous for only caring about money and not people. But he's a good person, a very good person. Only recognizing money and not people? Are you still a good person?" Ji-dong asked in confusion. Yin Tianji smiled bitterly and said, "He also has another problem, which is that he likes to throw money away. The money he earned from treating people, he would throw it away every day for fun. However, the places he throws it are mostly in the slums. The title of greedy, godly doctor is given to him by the aristocrats. In the mouths of the slums, he is the Buddha that gives birth to all. The funniest thing is that, in order not to break his own rule of greedy, godly doctor, when he treats the slums, he would often throw money at the doorstep of the slums. Then, he would let the slums bring the money to him to treat the slums. After he earns the money, he would even seriously ask for change. In Tianji City, he can be considered a big oddity. Even someone like Viscount Shirt doesn't dare to offend him." The muscles on Ji-dong's face twitched, and he said, "Weird guy, let's go." As he said this, he walked in front of Yin Tianji and walked out along the path they came from. It was strange that no matter how fierce the flames were, as long as Ji-dong walked over, they would immediately retreat. Not a single strand of flames would come within 5 feet of his body. As long as Yin Tianji followed a little closer, there would be no problem at all. The green light on the money grubber doctor's body was also very magical. He didn't release the yin-yang crown, but it could also resist the flames. Even if the flames burned the layer of light on his body, they could only circle around it and couldn't penetrate it. Looking at the raging flames, Yin Tianji's eyes became wet again. He said quietly in his heart, "Sister, you see, right? Viscount Shur's family has already been destroyed. Your younger brother has already avenged you. Sister, have a good journey. I will definitely live well. If there is a next life, I want to be your older brother and take care of you for the rest of your life, just like you took care of me." In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them had already walked out of Viscount Shur's mansion. As soon as they walked out of the main entrance, they saw a large number of commoners surrounding the entrance. They were pointing and talking about something, but no one was helping to put out the fire. It could be imagined what kind of person Viscount Shur was in Tianji City. Seeing the 3 of them walk out of Viscount Shur's mansion, the surrounding commoners were stunned for a moment. What happened next was something that Ji-dong and the other 2 had not expected. A commoner suddenly shouted, "Is everyone in Viscount Shur's mansion dead? Why hasn't anyone come out? Brother, did you see anyone come out?" As he spoke, he asked another commoner beside him. That commoner glanced at Ji-dong and the other 2. He was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted and said, "Yes, why isn't anyone here? Did anyone see anyone come out?" Didn't see. The commoners responded one after another. The commoners even turned their backs to Ji-dong and the other 2. All of them raised their heads and treated Ji-dong and the other 2 as if they were air. Ji-dong and Yin Tianji looked at each other. The light in their eyes could not help but reveal some joy. At least he understood that everything he did today was correct. Soon, the 3 of them walked out of the crowd. Yin Tianji and Hyoheim said, "Today's revenge has been avenged thanks to Master's help. Master, please accept my bow." As he spoke, he quickly walked 2 steps ahead of Jidong and knelt on the ground. Jidong grabbed Yun Tianji and did not let him kneel. He said, I said that your life only belongs to you and your sister. It does not belong to me. Now that your revenge has been avenged, if your sister is still alive, she will certainly hope that you can be outstanding and live a happy life. You will not be a servant. Yun Tianji said resolutely, if my sister knows that I am ungrateful, I am afraid that she will not be able to rest in peace. I have made up my mind. Even if Master does not want me, I will always follow you until the day I die. Follow him then. If you follow him, you will definitely be outstanding. You can also repay his kindness. The one who spoke was the man in cyan. He had a somewhat unruly smile on his face. He stood beside Jidong and gave Yun Tianji a thumbs up. He said, choosing to follow him is definitely the best future for you. I support you. Jidong glanced coldly at the man in cyan and said, we do not need you to meddle in our affairs. The man in cyan smiled bitterly and said, how can you be like this? I helped you just now, and I did not even collect money from you. This is the first time in my life that I have treated someone for free, and I was actually ignored. Jidong said, I did not ask you to treat me. You were the one who did it willingly. Since you're not helping Viscount Sure, you can leave. I am not leaving. The man in cyan had a roguish look on his face. I still have something to say. You must have been fighting for a long time. You must be hungry. Let's eat. As he spoke, he grabbed Jidong's sleeve and pulled him into a nearby restaurant. Jidong frowned and was just about to shake off the azure-robed man when the azure-robed man suddenly said something in a low voice. Jidong stopped in midair. In the blink of an eye, he had been dragged into the restaurant, with Yun Tianji following behind. Waiter, the azure-robed man called out. The waiter led the 3 of them to the 2nd floor and opened a private room for them. The man in blue took the menu without any hesitation and quickly ordered 8 dishes. Then, he waved his hand to dismiss the waiter. After entering the restaurant, Jidong's eyes revealed a light of contemplation. Just now, the young man only said 4 simple words to Jidong, but it was these 4 words that greatly aroused Jidong's interest. The young man said extreme wood. How could Jidong, who had the extreme double fire, not be attracted when he heard the same word? And when he saw the jade-like luster on the azure-robed man, he had doubts in his heart. Although the magic of the first wood attribute was cyan, it would never show the kind of bright cyan. Although he was not familiar with the magic of the wood attribute, he could still distinguish it. Moreover, the magic produced after his killing skill, Dancing Phoenix Sunall, broke out was the Bingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire. On Yun Tianji's side, he deliberately controlled the aftermath and absorbed the ultimate Yang Fire attribute. Yun Tianji only suffered the aftermath of the ordinary Bingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire. But what the azure-robed man suffered was the real Bingwu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire. Fire subdues wood. How could he be fine? Could an ordinary first wood demon master do it? Unless the opponent's magic was more than 20 levels higher than Jidong's, this was possible. You are the ultimate first wood. As soon as the waiter went out, Jidong asked directly. The azure-robed man smiled lazily and said, as expected of the 3rd fire saint, you really have a fiery temper. Jidong was stunned for a moment and said, what 3rd fire saint? The azure-robed man smiled and said, let's get to know each other first. My name is Yao Qinshu, a level 42 first wood grandmaster. Money tree? Jidong was stunned for a moment, but he was also awestruck. Level 42? The azure-robed man in front of him seemed to be only about 20 years old and had reached the level of 42. Even in the Heavenly STEM Academy's Inyang Hall, this was quite an achievement. Yun Tianji's gaze on the side was even more frozen. Yao Qinshu coughed and said, not a money tree. My surname is Yao, female, Zhao Yao. Qian is the Qian of a gentleman, and book is the book of a book. It really sounds like a money tree. Yun Tianji muttered, my name is Jidong, a level 32 fire grandmaster. He said the fire attribute, not the 3rd fire attribute. But this time, neither Yun Tianji nor Yao Qinshu noticed. Yao Qinshu said, you look like you're about 15 or 16 years old. Just now, When you killed Shirziju, I was very surprised by the skill you used. It really wasn't easy to find you. You don't have to be wary of me. We're the same kind of people, and we're destined to be friends. Besides, I've been searching for your ultimate yang fire for a long time. From now on, we're brothers. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother. Although there was the word modest in his name, he didn't seem to know what it meant at all. Moreover, he looked as if Yi Fuqian had taken advantage of him. Jidong said coldly, mind. First of all, I have nothing to do with you, and I am not the same kind of person as you. Secondly, I don't have the habit of calling others Big Brother. What a joke. His actual mental age was more than 30 years old. Would he call a 20-year-old person Big Brother? Yao Qinshu scratched his head and said awkwardly, looks like I didn't make myself clear. You don't know your own identity either. However, I can only tell you about this. Brother, would you mind leaving us alone? As he spoke, he glanced at Yin Tianji. Yin Tianji saw that Hyoheim didn't move. There was a questioning look in his eyes. Ji Dong said calmly, do you really plan to follow me in the future? Yin Tianji said without hesitation, of course. I swear to follow you until death. Ji Dong said, okay, I won't ask your age. From now on, you are my brother. Don't call me master. Just call me by my name. If you agree to my condition, you can stay. Otherwise, if I insist on getting rid of you, you won't be able to find me. Yin Tianji hesitated and said, okay, in my heart, you are my master. Ji Dong looked at Yao Qinshu and said, this is my brother. My secrets are no longer secrets in front of him. You can tell me now. Yin Tianji was stunned. He looked at Ji Dong. There was something in his eyes. Even though Ji Dong hadn't done anything to him, his trust in him was enough to warm his heart. Yao Qinshu smiled bitterly and said, that won't do. We have rules. This is a serious matter. Ji Dong waved his hand and said, then you can leave. You. Yao Qinshu looked at Ji Dong and his face fell. Usually, it was others who begged him. He had never seen someone like Ji Dong, who would chase him away at the slightest disagreement. But in front of Ji Dong, he couldn't do anything. To him, Ji Dong's appearance was too important. Okay, I'll tell you. But brother, the laziness on Yao Qinshu's face disappeared and was replaced by seriousness. He looked at Yin Tianji with a serious expression. My name is Yin Tianji. Okay, brother Yin Tianji, I hope that you will forget everything you are about to hear. Otherwise, it won't do you any good. Once it's leaked, I'm afraid you will be killed. Master, Yin Tianji had just said 2 words when he was met with Ji Dong's cold gaze. He immediately changed his words and said, if Ji Dong wants me to say it, I'll say it. If he doesn't want me to say it, I won't say a word. Yao Qinshu sighed and said, okay, I'm afraid of you. Ji Dong, have you heard of the heavenly stem saint? Ji Dong shook his head and said, I've never heard of it. A layer of green light spread from Yao Qinshu's body. Under Ji Dong's surprised gaze, this layer of light permeated every corner of the private room. Although Ji Dong couldn't see what Yao Qinshu wanted to do, he vaguely guessed that this layer of light should have the ability to isolate sound. Through this, he couldn't help but reevaluate Yao Qinshu's strength. To be able to control magic to such an extent without releasing the yin-yang crown, he couldn't do it himself. It seemed that Yao Qinshu had only attracted the first wood elements in the air to achieve such an effect. Moreover, these first wood elements automatically condensed into the ultimate first wood. To be able to control it so well, one could see his skill. Chapter 103. Under the illumination of the magic released by Yao Qinshu, the entire private room was filled with a strange feeling. It was full of vitality and made people feel indescribably comfortable. Heavenly Stem Saint is a personal title, Yao Qinshu said seriously. On our 5-element continent, 10 heavenly stem saints will appear after a long period of time. They're not taught or given abilities, but appear on their own. The standard to judge a heavenly stem saint is the ultimate magic power. For example, your ultimate third fire and my ultimate first wood. That's why I said before that we are the same kind of people. There's no doubt about this. Ji Dong said lightly. Are you talking about the 2 5-element continents or just the 5-element continent of light? Yun Tianji, who was next to him, did not understand. Yao Qianshu was slightly stunned and said, "You know about the five elements continent of light and the five elements continent of darkness?" Ji Dong nodded. Yao Qianshu frowned slightly and said, "This is a big secret for ordinary devil masters. What did you hear about it? Don't say it casually, or a group of people will come to find trouble with you. Looking at your age, you can't be from there, right?" Ji Dong nodded again and said, "However, I have nothing to do with that place now." Yao Qianshu thought for a moment and said, "I won't ask much about your past. The heavenly stem saint I mentioned just now refers to our five elements continent of light, but the existence of the 10 great saints is against the five elements continent of darkness." Ji Dong said, "In other words, the 10 great saints you mentioned are the 10 people who have the ultimate attributes of each system." Yao Qianshu nodded and said, "That's right. The birth of the 10 great holy disciples has been around for a long time, but very few people know about this secret. Generally speaking, the 10 great holy disciples will only be born once every few hundred years, and only after the current batch of 10 great holy disciples have passed away will a new generation of 10 great holy disciples be born. A powerful devil master's vitality far exceeds that of an ordinary person. This is even more so for us, the 10 great holy disciples. It's normal for us to live for a few hundred years. About 30 years ago, our new generation of 10 great holy disciples began to be born. I am first wood holy disciple, and you are third fire holy disciple." Ji Dong said, "Aren't you afraid of mistaking me for someone else?" Yao Qianshu said, "There's no way I'm mistaken. How many people do you think there are who are born with ultimate demonic powers? We, the 10 great saints, are unique existences." Ji Dong said indifferently, "I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. I'm not a holy disciple. Tianji, let's go." Yao Qianshu was stunned for a moment. He hurriedly stood in front of the two of them and said, "Ji Dong, don't go. Don't you believe what I said?" Ji Dong said, "It's not that I don't believe you. I'm just telling you that I'm not a saint. My ultimate flame isn't innate, it's acquired." "That's impossible. Only those who have reached the 9 crowns would be able to achieve such a thing. You're only at the triple crown level. Only those who are born with the ultimate flame would be able to achieve such a thing." Ji Dong said, "I don't have to argue with you about this, and I won't tell you my method of cultivation either. But I can say with certainty that my ultimate flame is acquired through my own cultivation. It's not innate. It's up to you whether you believe me or not." As he spoke, he had already walked past Yao Qianshu and pushed open the door. He met a waiter who was serving food. Ji Dong ignored him and walked out of the hotel with Yun Tianji. Hey, Ji Dong, listen to me." Yao Qianshu did not give up. He caught up from behind and said, "Ji Dong, even if you're not born with the ultimate flame, you're still a holy disciple. Among the 10 great saints, only the 3rd fire and the 4th fire have not appeared. We've been searching all this time. There's no way we're wrong. You're the only possibility. Even if you came here through cultivation, that's because you have talent. How can an ordinary devil master cultivate the ultimate flame?" Ji Dong glanced at him coldly and said, "You are very annoying." He didn't really believe Yao Qianshu's words. His ultimate flame was inherited from the 2 great kings. It could also be said that it was bestowed to him by the flaming bar. It had nothing to do with talent. Yao Qianshu said anxiously, "Ji Dong, the 10 great saints were born at the right time. We must follow our destiny. Why do you think I'm staying in this Tianji city? It's because Lord Tianji told me that I can only meet the 3rd fire and the 4th fire saint here. Don't you want to meet the other companions who have the ultimate devil power? Don't you want to try the combination skill of the ultimate attribute? Moreover, the 10 great saints all have their own heavenly stems armor. As long as our cultivation reaches a certain level, we can become almost invincible." Ji Dong stopped and looked at Yao Qianshu. He said, "You know, you look like a liar." Yao Qianshu smiled bitterly and said, "This is the first time someone has said that about me. Usually, they say that I'm a miser. Why don't you think, would a person who has the ultimate devil power be a liar? To be honest, The reason why I stayed in Tianji City to wait for your arrival is that my first wood and your third fire are close. We can borrow each other's strength. When Sir Viscount attacked you, you saw the power of the combination skill. That was just the magic of the ordinary attribute. If you and I cooperate, the power will be many times greater. Wood begets fire. With my ultimate first wood and your ultimate third fire, even in the face of an enemy at the 6th crown level, we still have the power to fight. Jidong had to admit that Yao Qianshu's words had a certain attraction. He was very interested in the combination skill, especially the ultimate devil combination skill that Yao Qianshu mentioned. However, he also vaguely felt that the heavenly stem saint that Yao Qianshu mentioned was not ordinary. There must be a lot of secrets behind such a strong power. There was no free lunch in the world. He did not want to join any disputes, and even more did not want to fall into any vortex of strife. Therefore, although he did not doubt Yao Qianshu's words, he still did not have the intention to talk to him in depth. For Jidong, his biggest goal in this life was to pursue the flaming bar. As for everything else, it was not important. He also disliked his freedom being restricted the most. With the lesson of the Heavenly Stems Academy, he now only wanted to move freely across the continent. Therefore, Jidong did not speak and continued to move forward with Yin Tianji. He needed to buy some supplies so that he could continue on his journey. The reason why he only used Yang Fire when dealing with Sher Viscount was because he wanted to conceal his identity. Although he had the arrogance of two great sovereigns, he would not be so arrogant to the extent of fighting against an empire. At least not now. Therefore, he did not use his trademark dual attribute flames. Jidong, Yao Qianshu took a step forward and blocked the path of agitation and Yun Tianji. His eyes were already showing extreme anger. In the past, he was the one who ignored others. This was the first time in his life that he was ignored like this. Jidong stopped again and looked at him quietly. He said, "Is there anything else?" Yao Qianshu said in a low voice, "The existence of the Heavenly Stem Saint is related to the safety of the 5 elements continent. Every generation of Heavenly Stem Saint is born when the time comes. There will be great chaos in the world. And we, the Heavenly Stem Saint, are the root of the solution to the problem. We control the 5 elements continent of darkness from the outside and the 5 great empires from the inside. We are in charge of the supreme power of the world. Since you killed Sher Viscount, you are definitely not a cold person. As the saying goes, if you are poor, you should take care of yourself. If you are rich, you should help the world. Don't tell me you only want to take care of yourself." Jidong said, "You don't have to say anything more. First of all, I don't have the ambition to help the world. Secondly, as I said, you are looking for the wrong person. I am not the 3rd fire saint you're looking for. That's all I have to say. If you try to stop me, don't blame me for being rude to you." Yao Qianshu was really a little exasperated. He really wanted to go berserk and fight with this young man in front of him who was unmoved by persuasion or force. But he also understood that although he had the advantage of magic power, it could be said that he had no chance of winning against Jidong. Perhaps Yin Tianji could not understand Jidong's ability, but he could see 70 to 80% of it. For the Heavenly Stem Saint, magic power would never be the key to determine one's strength. At this moment, suddenly, Jidong's eyes focused, and the yin and yang vortex in his body began to operate on its own. The originally very lively street suddenly quieted down. The surrounding crowd seemed to have disappeared into thin air. On the entire street, there were only the 3 of them. In fact, he is not wrong. You don't have to deny it. It's just that what he said is not complete. You're not only the 3rd fire saint, but also the 4th fire saint. A figure, like an illusion, appeared out of thin air. A faint shadow gradually came from a distance and gradually became clear. Jidong was surprised to find that his originally extremely sharp 6 senses had become blurred at this time, and his reaction to everything in the outside world was slow. All he could see was the slowly approaching illusory figure. Yao Qianshu moved aside, and his eyes were also cast on the gradually clear figure. His eyes were full of shock. 3rd fire saint and 4th fire saint. Since the birth of the Heavenly Stem Saint, You are the first saint to have dual attribute magic power. This undoubtedly means that you will have a strong future, and it also means that you will face even greater challenges. Jidong, you will be the leader of this generation of heavenly stem saints, the holy king who controls the rise and fall of the world. Jidong finally saw the person's appearance clearly. This person was dressed in white and looked to be in his 30s. His appearance was not very outstanding, but he had a kind of otherworldly aura. Just like when he first appeared, his whole person had a kind of illusory feeling. At the same time, Jidong faintly felt that the surrounding emptiness at this time was not really emptiness, but more like an illusion. Lord Tianji. Yun Tianji's exclamation sounded from beside Jidong. You are Tianji? Jidong asked in a deep voice. Tianji smiled slightly and took a step forward. Previously, he seemed to be dozens of meters away, but now he was already in front of her, standing side by side with Yao Qianshu. A holy king born out of necessity. All opportunities, even your birth, are caused by the will of heaven. Your future path is very difficult and bumpy, and even surrounded by tragedy. However, you are still the holy king who watches over the world. Without waiting for Jidong to speak, Yao Qianshu could not help but say, Tianji, you said that he is the third fire saint and fourth fire saint? How is that possible? Tianji's eyes revealed a depth that seemed to be able to see through everything. He said, nothing is impossible. The reason why your words can't win him over is precisely because you haven't seen his essence. Am I right? Heavenly STEM Academy's Inyang Hall, Special 49, the wanted Jidong for killing the second seat of the Inyang Hall, the imperial grandson of the Central Empire, Ji Feng. Jidong was shocked. He said, You can see me? Tianji sighed and said, What I can see is ultimately limited. I am 47 years old this year. In order to see you clearly, I have consumed 20 years of life force, but all this is worth it. Unfortunately, what I can see is only half of it. Your real future is only a vague shadow. Jidong said coldly, Even if I am really the holy disciple you speak of, so what? What do you want me to do? Tianji said, Now is not the time to do anything. I used my life force as the prize to reveal the secrets of the heavens in hopes that you would be prepared. You still have 7 years, and after 7 years, the world will descend into chaos, including today when Little Cloud met you, as well as the death of his sister. All of these are the will of the heavens. At the moment he met you, he was already the next Tianji. This is the test for all the candidates of Tianji. If he meets a Saint King, he will inherit my legacy. Jidong said angrily, Since you know the danger his sister will face, why didn't you save her? Tianji said indifferently, Knowing doesn't mean you can change it. Everyone's fate is predetermined. If you try to change it rashly, it will only make the result worse. Jidong snorted and said, Haven't you heard of the words man can conquer nature? Tianji's eyes suddenly burst out 2 dazzling lights. Man can conquer nature, what a good saying. As expected of a saint ruler. You may not understand what I am saying now, but I believe that you will gradually understand in the future. The existence of Tianji is for the sake of the holy disciples, to foresee the future, to guide the dawn of the future. I still have 7 years to live. Xiaoyun, come with me. From now on, you must closely follow the saint ruler, follow the footsteps of the saint ruler. Everything else, just let nature take its course. This is my final guidance for you. Saint ruler, after 7 years, Xiaoyun will naturally come find you. At that time, he will be the new generation of Tianji. Without waiting for Jidong to open his mouth, everything around him suddenly became illusory and distorted. Yun Tianji's figure quietly faded and disappeared in a series of astonishment. However, Jidong couldn't do anything. He only felt as if he couldn't control everything around him. Even his own magic power was blocked, and his yin-yang vortex seemed to be suppressed by something. Saint Ruler, don't try to interfere with the will of heaven. The will of heaven is not something your magical power can change. This is the first time we meet, and also the last time.